Alrighty. Another day of content. The news cycle is just fucking crazy right now, guys. Holy shit. They're just, I mean, it's back to back to back to back to back to back to back. All right, all right. So here we are again. Um, we're back to the pearl clutching. We're back to just people going fucking ballistic over something that's very, very. I mean, you can see, you can see, you can see the officer get hit in one of the videos that got released today. Of course, that's not the one that's being pushed all over the media. That's not the one that, you know, people are talking about. They're talking about the one that looks like the guy just pulls his gun out and shoots into the car. They're not showing the video of the guy actually getting hit by the car. You can see it. Craziness. But I have it, and we're going to watch it, you know. But here we are again, okay? Here we are again where it's the lefties, they'll laugh in the face of someone getting killed when it's someone they disagree with, and then when one of their people gets killed, it's all pearl clutching, right? That's the name of the game. It's never going to change. But obviously, this is the breaking news today, so I'm going to go ahead and go over this. But I have a bunch of shit for us to talk about today because there's a lot of stuff going on right now.
Wanted to check in with him and Paul. You know, I think
this is a little antiquated, though.
And clearly, different people are going to look at that same video and come away with different takes on it.
They sure are, no doubt, Amy and Simone. This was a witnessed incident, and there are several different videos from slightly different angles, so clearly people were out there videotaping what was occurring. I know you just played the video without audio. I have in the newsroom listened to it, viewed it, and I think as the mayor and the police chief filled in some of the holes during their news conference, it appears to be a woman, again, an observer, if you will, or certainly someone who was perhaps... They had their car perpendicular in the roadway.
Yeah, because that's what regular people do, right? They just, and it's not just her car. There are multiple cars that are blocking traffic. Multiple cars blocking traffic. And I love how, God, I hate Fox, man. I love how they spin it from this perspective of, it seems that her car was perpendicular, like that's somehow fucking normal. How many times do you guys drive down the road and have somebody in your lane with their car sideways? How many? Please explain that to me. I fucking hate Fox, man.
It appeared that officers went up, like ordered her to move, and ordered her to open the door, and that is when she took off. There is an agent, the ICE agent, who eventually pulls the trigger several times in the roadway. And this is where, depending on how you look at it, depending what agency is looking at it, you certainly...
Depending on what video you watch. My question is this. If he wasn't in front of the car, why did the first bullet go through the windshield?
We heard the mayor called DHS's version of events BS. There is an agent in the roadway. There's an open window. Car sort of gets moving, peels out. I want to be careful with my verbiage. Makes a right turn. The agent open fires into the window. That car rolls down the road just a little bit further, and that is where it crashes into another vehicle, and they eventually get medical care. And as we now know, the 37-year-old woman perished. She died from the gunshot injuries from that.
And she's a white woman, so they're probably not going to riot. I know everyone's scared that they're going to riot, but she was white. So Black Lives Matter doesn't give a fuck about this
incident. So there is video. The investigation will obviously play out. And Ryan, in our booth, wants to tell me now that we can play it with some audio. Why don't we roll that for you now?
No!
First bullet goes through the windshield. The second two go through the side window.
And there it goes. We're
He's in front of the car. Pushed out of the way. In front of the car. Pushed out of the way. In front of the car. Pushed out of the way. In front of the car. Pushed out of the way.
And there it goes. We're just going to play the very initial, seconds or so there. But there's this apparent effort. Perhaps ICE was moving down the road. You could see that one, I believe it's a pickup truck. Yeah, the pickup truck, that's ICE trying to get down the road. The woman, again, begins with a car in a perpendicular position. I don't know how exactly that would have happened. But she did appear to perhaps be blocking ICE's progress towards
Yep.
target, towards a destination.
Sure was.
The agents got out. They were angry. They ordered her to leave. They reached for her door a couple of times, and that is when she kind of peels out to the right, and then there is an agent right there who opens fire into the window, and she is subsequently killed. So this video will be closely scrutinized by people on all sides, investigators, Hennepin County Attorney's Office.
Get the fuck out of the road.
Terry, about wanting a local investigation. We heard during the news conference that the FBI with the BCA will take a look at the investigation, the use of force. Authorities at that news conference didn't appear to know exactly what could transpire on a potential charging decision when you have a federal agent working an operation in the city of Minneapolis. But no doubt, Amy, Simone, this was very much a witnessed event, a documented event. And now, whether you call it finger pointing, clearly there's anger. There was an emphasis from the city to get ICE agents out of there. They were the targets of the protests that quickly developed around there. Karen Scullin was out in it. Chemical irritants needed to be used to at least push back some of the gathering crowd. And
Because they were blocking them and telling them to get out. What fucking sense does that make, dude? Here, hold on. I gotta grab some water and nicotine and a beer. Whew. All right, I'm back.
it didn't make the news last night, but we had, in our newsroom, took a look at an incident yesterday where we now understand there was a car crash where ICE perhaps was pursuing somebody out in Eden Prairie, and there was a car crash from a fleeing, we believe a target of the ICE investigation. There was a mash-up at an intersection there, and I saw some of the aftermath video from witnesses who quickly turned their disdain and anger and angst towards the ICE agents. People very much concerned over these last several weeks since the surge began about the way ICE conducted its business. You know, the chief warned that this day could happen, and clearly now the city of Minneapolis is responding and reeling from what took place there in the Powder River neighborhood.
They're responding by getting in the way of federal operations. They're responding by putting themselves in harm's way in these situations. I mean, if you just leave them alone, this would have never happened. This is what people voted for. People voted for this. They want ICE to deport people. And these protesters who say they care about democracy so much obviously don't agree with what the general consensus was in this past election. So, democracy for me, not for thee.
Earlier this morning.
Yeah, that's what's so ironic is, you know, Police Chief Brian O'Hara just hosting his, year in review meeting yesterday for 2025. And he literally, in that same press conference, just said his fear is that something of this nature, of this capacity, could happen. As we know, they have said this is the largest immigration enforcement operation.
Well, see, if these fucking politicians would just be, like, level-headed and say, hey, guys, do not engage with ICE. Leave them alone. Let them do their thing. We'll fight it in court, whatever. Instead of being rational about this, they're telling these people that they're fascists and they're taking over the country. I mean, it's ridiculous. This is what leads to these kinds of things.
That we have seen 2,000 agents deployed here to the Twin Cities, and now this happens here today.
And when you don't have a system of communication, right? It's a federal operation, and there are agents coming in from other states. We know just from talking with some police chiefs that in Minneapolis and St. Paul that there are local federal agents that they know and they work with often, but then others are coming in. Some other ICE agents are coming in from other places. They don't know them, and there is not an infrastructure of communication intentionally by many, including cities like Minneapolis. So it kind of felt like a recipe for disaster is what the police chief and mayor have been saying, Paul.
And the city officials have sort of made the point that this isn't necessarily in their minds about safety. There's no collaboration. Do we?
Yes, there's no collaboration. They refuse to work with ICE. if they worked with ICE, this would go a lot smoother. But they refuse to work with the federal government. Like, our own politicians are setting up these paradigms where the federal government has to react in a certain way. Instead of the police working with the federal government, they refuse to. Why? Why? When the local governments, the state government, the city government, when these local governments are telling people, we're not going to work with these ICE agents because we disagree with what they're doing, the citizens aren't going to work with them either. They're going to impede them. They're acting under the assumption that the federal government is doing something that's illicit or illegal. This is what causes these things. It's very simple. And they know it. And they know when they rile people up and push people to do things like this, that people are going to act in this way. They know, like they know it. And then they can use it politically, which is what they're doing right now. That lady was blocking federal operations, which in and of itself is a felony. And then when they went to pull her out of her car and arrest her, whether or not she tried to hit the officer, I think intent doesn't really matter here. She hit the officer. So he fired at her because she's in a 4,000-pound death machine. That's what happens. Maybe people don't want to, look at it from a very practical standpoint. But it is what it is, right? Like, you really can't get around that. The course of events with all this is so important to watch. It's so vitally important to keep your eyes on the course of events and how everything's worked. Because, look, the people voted for ICE. The people voted for deportations. It was like an 80-20 issue, okay? And the second Trump got into office, all of these local governments and state governments that disagree with Trump and don't like Trump immediately said they're not going to allow this to happen. Well, obviously they had to allow it. They can't stop federal operations. So what do the citizens do? And apparently she's got a Missouri plate or some shit. But what do the citizens do? The citizens start to get involved as well. And she did. And they knew this would happen. They even talked about it. Someone's going to get hurt eventually. Well, there you go. You got what the chickens are coming home to roost.
Chase people down the street. These are, perhaps people who have entered this country illegally. Are there other ways to go about an operation to take the dangerous ones off the street? Seeing them at courthouses, at immigration check-ins, at visiting them at their homes, and this is what city.
Yeah, they're going to these hotels and making noise and banging. The Hilton just ripped away the franchise license of one of the hotels that was a franchise of theirs because they would not allow federal agents to be housed there. Like, what a stupid fucking business decision. If I was at a Hilton and ICE was coming to me looking for a place to put their folks, look, I'm a capitalist. And you're writing me a check from the Department of Treasury, okay? $400 a night per person. I mean, it's ridiculous to me.
Officials worried about, but we don't know exactly what was taking place this morning. But there was some operation where ICE, people are being, you follow them on social media, people are literally, shadowing ICE as they leave their headquarters at the Whipple building right by the airport, Bloomington, that South Minneapolis little corridor near the airport. People are following them. People are watching them. People are watching their every move. Wouldn't shock you to see somebody perhaps try to block a roadway if they felt someone was trying to get away from an ICE traffic stop, if that is in fact what occurred this morning. It's creating dangerous situations is the argument from City Hall. I don't think this is a proper way to go about an immigration enforcement. And today it is the nightmare ending that the police chief has spoken about, that the mayor worried about, and now this. And then we'll have to see how the community responds. I think getting ICE out of there.
Well, the lady was white, so they're not going to riot. No one cares when a white person gets killed.
What they're calling a crime scene now, right? It's a crime scene now. There's an active investigation into law enforcement's use of force. It's a new territory, certainly for the folks involved. The mayor, who's the attorney himself, didn't quite know exactly sort of the legal processes here that take place. The FBI and the BCA now probing the shooting itself. I think it's important to reiterate there are videos. There seems to be videos from several different angles.
Yes.
And the shooting itself, and then Fox 9 has chosen to show it sparingly and perhaps without the audio because there is obviously a woman killed in the frames and vulgar language left and right and
stupid bitch. She got what she had coming.
A difficult day now for that Powderhorn neighborhood that we were just flying over in that video we showed you a second ago.
Yeah, and in that video we saw several people of the community, and as you mentioned, we don't know how the community is going to respond to this. And we know the mayor's hope, the chief's hope is that people remain calm and remain safe as well. Paul, thank you for talking us through some of that video there. Please stay with us. I'm sure we'll check in. We have so many videos to go through in our newsroom, so glad to have you with us. Hopefully you'll join us in just a couple of moments.
I hate Fox. It's
today we're tasting every US.
I hate Fox because they jump on the train of watering down the situation. Here's the video. This is the one that is like the smoking gun. Okay, this is the one that you can see. In this, the ICE officer get hit by the car. Okay. Damn it. All right. Check it out. Okay. So this is the officer that was out front that fired the shots. Okay. Watch. There he is in front of the car. There he is in front of the car. It pushes his body out of the way. It pushes his body out of the way. Easiest way to tell this, it moves exactly as the car does. This isn't like some kind of fucking forensic investigation. Okay? Watch. Pushes him out of the way. Boom. First shot goes through the windshield. It's like in GTA when you cap someone in the head and they're driving. Their foot goes bing right down on the gas pedal. That's what happened. Okay? Look, we can watch it again. There's the ICE officer. The car pushes him out of the way. I mean, it's like ridiculous this is even a question. Now, the question of intent will come up with this, right? Did she intend to do this? At that point, it does not matter. At this point, You have hit a federal officer with your car, whether you intended to or not. They told you to stop. They told you to get out. We'll watch this again. I see there's more people coming in now. So, this is the officer that fired the shots. Watch how his body just seemingly happens to move at the same speed in the same direction of the car. Like, it's fucking ridiculous that people even think. Boom. Look. Boom. 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 He's in front, and he's not anymore. He's in front, he's not anymore. He's in front, he's not anymore. Yeah, what up, Dusty? Good to see you, man. Oh, yeah, I hear you. 100%. Yeah. See, so here's my game with this, dude. This is the big thing to me, right? So when people put themselves in a position like she did, you can dislike what Trump is doing. Don't get me wrong. Like, you have every right to dislike it. But if you put yourself in a position to block folks, or like this lady was, she was blocking traffic along with these other people over here. They were blocking traffic. They told her to get out of her car. They probably would have just moved her car and then went along on their day. But instead, she floored it. Do I think she meant to hit the guy? I honestly, I doubt it. I doubt it. That would be stupid with how many cameras were around. You're going to go to federal prison for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? So I truly don't think she intended to hit the guy. But she hit the guy. Like, that's just it, you know? And I understand where you're coming from with not liking it. I know there's a lot of people who don't. You know, I'm not even going to debate that. I think, you know, me and you have already hashed that out a couple times in the past. But at the end of the day, she fucking hit a federal officer with her car. I mean, boom, 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 you know? And of course, Twitter's going crazy with people saying they murdered her, they murdered her. No, they didn't. They didn't. If she would have just moved her car or gotten out, she'd be alive right now. You know? So it's just one of those things, man. I mean, it's truly is unfortunate. I'm not happy that she's dead or anything. It's kind of one of those, you know, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. That was a dumb fucking game to play. Really, really dumb game to play. So this is Tim Walz coming out, giving some commentary on what he has to say, and of course they're gonna completely politicize all this. You know, it's just gonna happen.
Things happening. Tim Walz. We have audio here. Tim Walz, turn the microphone on.
Good afternoon.
There it
Today
is.
I'm joined by Department of Public Safety Commissioner Bob Jacobson, Colonel Schaefer of the Minnesota National
My left
Guard,
ear loves this.
and Colonel Bogojevic of the Minnesota State Patrol. This morning we learned that an ICE officer shot and killed someone in Minneapolis.
I'm gonna do this one. Sorry.
Commissioner Bob Jacobson.
There we go. There we
Colonel
go.
Schaefer of the Minnesota National Guard, and Colonel Bogojevic of the Minnesota State Patrol. This morning we learned that an ICE officer shot and killed someone in Minneapolis. My deepest condolences to the family, to the loved ones who had to learn about this tragic event on national television. We've been warning for weeks that the Trump administration's dangerous, sensationalized operations are a threat to our public safety.
Yes, you have. You've been saying that people are going to get hurt and you're not going to comply with them. And here's the thing, right? People voted for this. He was a democratically elected candidate who became president, and this was one of his top issues. People voted for this. And as he gets into presidency, instead of, you know, doing the democratic thing that they love to champion, they're like the champions of democracy, instead, what they do is they fight him tooth and nail every step of the way. Every step of the way, they fight him tooth and nail. And they tell the people that this is, you know, we're not going to work with them. This is fascism. This is this. This is that. They tell the people all the things. And don't assist to make this a smooth process. You know, really, at the end of the day, right? Like, here in Alabama, you know why we don't have an issue with ICE taking people? We don't have issues with ICE capping people in the streets. You know why? Because Alabama works. What up, Rude? Good to see you. Alabama works with ICE. And it's a smooth operation. In the states that work with the federal government, it's a smooth operation. In states where they don't, chaos breaks loose. What's up, Rude? Good to see you, man.
That someone was going to get hurt. Just yesterday, I said exactly that. What we're seeing is the consequences of governance designed to generate fear, headlines, and conflict.
Yes, and it's coming from you. If you worked with your democratically elected federal government to do the things that people voted him in to do, these issues wouldn't happen. I don't hear any problems happening from any states that are complying with the federal government, that are working with them. None. At all. The only issues I hear is from states that are actively refusing and telling the citizens of the state that this is fascism, this is evil, this is bad, this is not a good thing. We are not going to work with them. And they're not allowed to impede federal operations. So they let the citizens fucking do it. And the citizens do it, and they get fucking killed, right? It's very, like, it's an order of operations here. You just pay attention to the timeline as it goes. You see, like, there's a pattern.
TV. And today that recklessness cost someone their life. I've reached out to Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and I'm waiting to hear back. Let me be clear. Donald Trump and his administration may not care much about Minnesota. That's been pretty evident. But we love this state. We won't let them tear us apart. We'll not turn against each other. To Minnesotans, I say this. I feel your anger. I'm angry.
There's a lot of people angry at you too, you fucking fraudster. Lots of people are angry with this guy right now.
They want a show. We can't give it to them. We cannot. If you protest and express your First Amendment rights, please do so peacefully as you always do. We can't give them.
They weren't too peaceful in 2020. Minneapolis fucking burned.
What they want. The hearts and minds of the people in this state are on our side. To Americans, I ask you this. Please stand with Minneapolis. To Minnesotans, know that our administration is going to stop at nothing to seek accountability and justice. The State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension are working on the investigation. We have activated the State Emergency Operations Center. State Patrol and Minnesota National Guard leadership is connected with the Minneapolis Police Department, the St. Paul Police Department, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the DNR, and Minnesota's Homeland Security and Emergency Management.
And why are none of these branches cooperating with the federal government? Why?
We have activated dozens of members of the State Patrol's mobile response team.
Barry Morris, thank you. Whoa.
And from here on, I have a very simple message. We do not need any further help from the federal government.
Shut up.
To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough.
Okay, no more federal funding then.
There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community. They're business owners. They're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait. We will continue to update you, Minnesota, as we get more information. Now I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Bob Jacobson of the Minnesota Department of Public Safety.
Thanks, Tim.
So they don't need any more help from the federal government. Well, you're going to get help. Trust me. It's not stopping. That's the thing, right? Is like, you're not in a position politically to impede federal operations. And when you choose not to assist in them, that's your only option. That's their only option, is to choose not to assist in federal operations. They can't impede them. They can't get in the way at all. When the only people who will choose, because they're not going to, they don't want to go to jail. They don't want to get arrested. And they know that there are people who are willing to impede federal operations, and those are citizens. And they are totally willing to let citizens get in the way of the federal boot while they step back and go, hey, we're not helping anything. Have at it. Right? See, they're not taking they're talking an anti-position, but they're taking a neutral position. They're letting someone else fight for the things they talk about. That's what they're doing. They don't give a shit about these people who are getting killed. If anything, it helps them politically. Because that's what they're doing with this. They're making this a political thing, right? Instead of telling people, hey, just stop trying to impede these ICE officers. People are getting hurt. Instead of doing that, they're going, Trump is blah. This administration. Trump, Trump, Trump. It's all a political game. Just saw this. I thought it was pretty funny. Again, right? This guy reaches for the weapon of one of these. I don't even know if this is ICE. This could just be like Department of Homeland Security. But he reaches for his weapon and gets pepperballed in the fucking mouth. See? Like, you had that coming, bro. Watch. Puts his hands up. The guy goes, get back. He pushes him. Then the dude grabs his weapon. Grabs the weapon. Pop. See, these are the people that these politicians are totally willing to stand in the way and do their bidding or do the dirty work while they take a neutral position. That's what's going on here. Remember, in the earlier riots, politicians were going out there and they were doing stupid shit and getting arrested. Now, they're not out here doing anything. They're taking the neutral position. They don't want to get pepperballed in the face. They don't want to get arrested anymore. They'll let citizens do it for them. All right, so moving on from what happened today. I mean, it's obvious what happened, dude. That lady had it coming. She whether or not she purposefully intended to hit the officer or not, that does not matter. She hit an officer with her car. And I left the tab open on that video specifically because I want anyone who comes in here to argue that point, if someone does, I want to show them that video. But in the meantime, so there's a federal crackdown at targets massive Minnesota welfare fraud scandal. Federal prosecutors have charged nearly 100 people, mostly tied to Somali-owned nonprofits, in scheme stealing from programs like children nutrition and daycare subsidies, with the Feeding Our Futures case alone topping $250 million, the largest known pandemic fraud. A new state audit exposed weak oversight in $425 million of behavioral health grants, including fabricated documents by DHS managers. The Trump administration is deploying extra prosecutors, auditing Medicaid, and launching major ICE operations, while a congressional hearing revealed that 1,000 whistleblowers facing retaliation. A congressional hearing revealed over 1,000 whistleblowers that are facing retaliation and high welfare dependency among Somali households. Oh yeah, rude. I'm not. I mean, like, you know, it's fucking terrible that someone got killed today. Like, I'm not cheering this lady on, or I'm not cheering on this lady's death by any stretch. I'm not. You know, like, I think the saddest thing is that their local government has put them in a position to where they are the ones who are going to feel all of the weight. Like, it's just get out of the way. Just get out of the way. Because they're not protesting by taking the neutral position and letting people who feel very vehemently against this stuff get hurt. They're not protesting. They're just chalking up the citizens to be cannon fodder, right? If they truly wanted to keep people safe, the citizens of their state, they would comply and help the process go much easier.
Hearing. As I said on Monday, thank you, Chairman Comer, for holding this important hearing. As I said on Monday, good riddance to Governor Walz, but he cannot escape accountability for the estimated $9 billion in fraud. How did this happen? And where the hell has the Twin Cities media been? The Star Tribune is complicit. They have had this story for years, if you just heard, and they've refused to report anything on it. In fact, they continue to try and cover up.
Yep.
Our Minnesota Republican colleagues have demanded answers and accountability for years, but have seen nothing from Walz, his administration, our Democrats.
See, it's not even the Nick Sorter guy or the Nick Shirley kid. You know what I mean? It's not even him really that deserves like the pat on the back for all this. The person that deserves the pat on the back is that guy that's been blowing this up for 9 fucking years. He's been talking about this for 9 years. And no one has done anything about it. They've all basically told him to keep his fucking mouth shut. He said, like, I have friends and people that, you know, in my family that they don't talk to me anymore because of how I'm trying to cover this story and no one's doing anything about it. Like, this has been going on forever. This is not new. And they've known about this.
Colleagues like Tina Smith, Amy Klobuchar, Ilhan Omar, and Angie Craig, or the worthless Star Tribune. Thank God for President Donald J. Trump for finally bringing attention to this issue. Representative Rarick, I'm going to begin with you. You've been working on this issue for years. You've spoken to the whistleblowers personally. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You have an understanding that 1,000 whistleblowers running an account on X have come forward to expose fraud in Minnesota state agencies, and they have been entirely ignored by Tim Walz and have even been retaliated against. Is that accurate?
That is correct. Even this morning, I got another message.
Well, in your experience, are their claims credible or are they politically motivated against Walz?
They're completely credible, not politically motivated.
In fact, many of these are Walz administration employees, correct?
Mm-hmm.
They are actually Democrats as well.
Can you quickly give us one example of the retaliation these folks have been facing?
Yes, I can. In my opening statement, I mentioned that the most severe ones was that they would be fired with cause, so they couldn't have unemployment insurance, that they would be blacklisted from all state agencies, and I bet that it's also Hennepin County and Ramsey County. As you know, those are Democrat-run.
What they're saying is, if you talk about this, you're fucking done in the government. People whose their entire career is in the government, and just by following the law, which in the Minnesota Constitution, it says if you know about fraud, you are required by law to report it. All of these people were told you will be fired and blacklisted if you obey the law.
And more, much more.
Based on what you've learned, Representative, over the last several years, do you have any doubt that Governor Tim Walz knew about this fraud as it was occurring?
He absolutely knew that it was occurring.
Yeah, there was the first 500 that came out and talked about this. The first 500 of them all said, we have been telling Tim Walz about this for years, and he did nothing. The entire time. He didn't do a fucking thing. They've been telling him about this for years. They even went on to Twitter with their own page, and then the government shut that page down, and they had to change the name and make a new page. It's ridiculous. On the official page. That's where most of this really started coming out. That's how they found, like, the Feeding Our Future, the $250 million fraud going through that.
Thank you. The Housing Stability Services Program was estimated to cost about $2.6 million per year, but before it was shut down last October, it was on track to run about $122 million in 2025. In fact, I think they sucked $161 million out of it from the point it started in 2020 until it was finally shut down. Isn't that correct?
That is correct, and Joe Thompson believes that 90% of that was fraud.
Yeah. The Quality Leering Center, as uncovered by Nick Shirley, received almost $10 million in funding. Is that accurate?
I believe it is.
There are more than 80 autism centers in Minnesota under investigation. Is that true?
I believe it is, yes.
It's clear that someone is criminally complicit. You can't just let this amount of money get out of your administration over a period of 7 years without knowing. There was a hearing in the state regarding the fraudulent housing stabilization program, but before that hearing, Governor Walz fired the official who was slated to testify so that they could not testify and expose what was happening under Governor Walz's watch. Has Governor Walz or Attorney General Ellison fired anyone else to your knowledge, Representative?
Not to my knowledge, and that was Eric Rumdahl, and his administration believes that he was not fired, but I say he was fired because it was too convenient.
Right. Representative Hudson, is it true that 90% of the individuals charged, regardless of what your colleague on the panel just said with his facts and figures, 90% of the individuals charged or indicted with the $250 million Feeding Our Future COVID fraud are of Somali descent?
I believe that to be correct.
Are you aware that in a 2021 video, Mr. Ellison promised that he would obstruct his own agencies in their investigation of Somali fraud?
I am very much aware of that.
It's no wonder that criminals in the Somali community felt they were free to steal taxpayer dollars. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Marion. Do you have any doubt that Tim Walz knew about this fraud as it was occurring?
None whatsoever.
Walz and Ellison were protecting fraudsters instead of investigating them, and it was purposeful. And it's no coincidence that this is occurring largely in the Somali community. Walz made a sanctuary state, Minnesota, a sanctuary state. He gave free health care, free college, and free licenses to illegals. And Walz looked the other way when Somali immigrants were stealing. Representative Robbins, do you have any doubt that Tim Walz knew about this fraud as it was occurring?
None whatsoever.
So all three of you have no doubt in your minds that Tim Walz knew about the $9 billion of fraud during his tenure as governor and did nothing about it. It looks like my time is about to expire, and I do want to say to all of you, on behalf of Minnesota, thank you for being here, and justice will be served. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, dude, Walz is cooked. He's so fucking cooked. Dude, it's over. It's over for the Waltz administration. So here's the Minnesota AG. Now there's some leaked audio that shows that he was meeting with these now convicted fraud folks before this all got blown out of the water.
The House Oversight Committee will hold a hearing on the widespread Minnesota fraud scandal.
So it comes as the focus shifts to the state attorney general.
Alexis McAdams joins us live from Minneapolis with the many details. Alexis.
That's right. A lot of details here because really, according to prosecutors, Brian, there's just so much fraud here in the state. Now they're looking at the state's Attorney General, Keith Ellison. Why? Because the state's top cop here in Minnesota was caught in an audio recording behind closed doors meeting with a group of soon-to-be convicted Somali fraudsters. They were asking the Attorney General for help to get more funding. Listen to this.
The only way we can protect what we have is by inserting ourselves into the political arena, putting our votes where it needs to be, but most importantly, putting our dollars in the right place and supporting candidates that will fight to protect our interests.
That's right.
You can only protect our interests when we have your back and you don't have to worry about who's behind you.
And also this group was talking about, as you heard there, supporting his campaign. So Keith Ellison is pushing back on this. He said that he takes fraud seriously. He shared in an op-ed writing this: I took a meeting in good faith with people I didn't know, and some turned out to have done some bad things. I did nothing for them, and I took nothing from them. But some of those now convicted Somali fraudsters did donate money to Ellison's campaign, according to documents obtained by the Center for the American Experiment. Ellison reportedly later gave the money back because those people were convicted. Fox obtained the entire, pretty much almost an hour-long clip of this meeting, so there's so much in it. It's from the lawyer of this woman, Amy Bach. She was convicted in this massive Feeding Our Future scam. That's how it all started. Bach's behind bars, and her legal team says, where's the accountability for Governor Walz and the Attorney General? They knew that this was going on. He says nothing happened until the Fed stepped in. Do you think some of these politicians should be held accountable?
I would like to see someone in the state, I don't care whether it's the governor,
Someone?
the attorney general, someone take responsibility.
Someone?
Tim Walz was caught, quote, red-handed for his role in the fraudulent Somali scams plaguing Minnesota for more than a decade. Governor Walz is not running for re-election. He says he's going to take accountability.
Yeah.
But the White House...
As all this... What's up, Caucasian? Good to see you, man. So this is crazy to me. So as all of this stuff starts getting like mass reported on to the people, he steps down, but he says it has nothing to do with this. And then he also says, in another breath, he says, if I'd run, I would win. So why the fuck are you stepping down right now?
That's not going to shield you from the investigation.
I'm not going anywhere. And you can make all your requests for me to resign over my dead body. Will that happen? I will fight this thing till the very end to make this state better.
To the very end? You're only fighting it until next year, dipshit. You're backing out of the race.
And the question that I think they need to decide is when did the guy in the White House resign?
Okay, so that's his response as this ongoing
Trump. That's all he said.
fraud scandal continues. The DOJ is going to send more prosecutors here to the state, which prosecutors on the ground have already said they needed because there's just so much fraud to investigate. Also, that audio clip that we just played for you, that's going to be mentioned in today's hearing. So it's something to keep an eye on with Ellison. Back to you.
All right, great job out there, Alexis. So when it comes to Attorney General, if you didn't know these people, why did you promise them that you were going to protect them? Why did you take a meeting and tell those people that? And then the second thing is happening is, so the attorney is saying, my client is not going to be the only person to go down for this. So they want the politicians now. That's what happened when you capture someone that has committed an offense. Everybody wants a deal, so they start singing.
Yeah.
So you're going to have the criminals that got the money. They're going to start telling us what politicians help protect them.
So the U.S. Attorney in Minnesota...
And there's so many pictures of Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar and just all these different high-ups in Minnesota government with the people who were convicted of committing fraud. Like, just those two.
said the scope of this fraud could exceed maybe $1 billion, and could go as high as $9 billion. That's taxpayer money that criminals scammed the system, and they used that money, according to people involved. They pleaded guilty to using the money for luxury cars, for real estate, for jewelry, for vacations, taxpayer dollars. And then you have the governor who says he's not going to run again, but the governor is complaining about ICE arrests, saying they're unreasonable and an unreasonable use of taxpayer dollars. So hypocritical. Listen to this.
It's crazy,
He
dude.
says ridiculous. Nobody is fooled into thinking this buffoonery is a reasonable use of taxpayer dollars. It should not take 50 ICE agents to arrest a guy in a library.
You're insane. When you are a sanctuary city, you're telling your cops you can't help anyone. So you have to make sure that you put thousands of people on the streets because you get no help for local law enforcement. So they have about 2,000, more than any other city, 2,000 on the streets. They've already made over 1,000 arrests, and they found some wanted criminals along the way. So after they came out with a statement calling basically ICE agents and their actions buffoonery, we put that question to ICE Director Todd Lyons.
Not only is obviously we're focused on the fraud, right? But the mayor's right. There is a lot of work for us to do, and it's the fraud of immigration enforcement. So we have so many people that are in Minnesota right now that have violated immigration law by falsely claiming asylum, lying on their refugee status. There are so many individuals, not only Minnesota, across the United States, but we're focused on Minnesota because there's such a draw, because these individuals can go to these sanctuary jurisdictions and just hide in plain sight and get the support they need from elected officials. So we are going to focus on that. We are focusing on the people of Minnesota. We're going to make sure that the people who aren't supposed to be in Minnesota are no longer in Minnesota.
And they've already arrested over 90 individuals, many of them of Somali descent, the majority of them of Somali descent. The second thing I would say is the governor, ICE would not have to use 50 agents for one person if you guys and your people in your party weren't doxing them and there wasn't assassinating threats and the assaults against them didn't.
And ICE officers getting shot in the fucking neck.
Raise over 1,000%.
And if local law enforcement, if they had the go-ahead by the governor to work.
See, like people will get all up in arms and they'll clutch their pearls and shit over some stupid bitch who could have easily avoided dying today, right? But then when it comes to like militants who wait outside of ICE facilities and open fire on them, remember that one ICE officer got hit in the neck. And then there was that one dipshit who he like fired on a bunch of them. Ended up missing and killing two of the people they detained. So crazy.
With ICE.
That's right. Yeah. I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley.
See, if these folks would just, like comply and offer help, a lot of this would go very smoothly, but they don't want it to go smoothly. They want these people to get hurt so they can use it politically. You have to understand, they're not doing shit to impede this. All they're doing is saying, we're not going to help you. That's all they're doing. That's a neutral stance. That is not a protesting stance. That's neutral. They're letting the citizens who feel strongly about this get in the way of it. They're letting them block traffic. They're letting them rally around and have fucking 50 people outside of an ICE facility throwing fucking bricks and shit at cops. They're the ones who are like, and the funny thing is, these people are doing it willingly. They're like actively putting themselves in harm's way. It's crazy.
Now recognize Representative Robbins for her opening statement.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. Thank you for inviting us to testify. As chair of the Fraud Prevention Committee in Minnesota, I've been working to uncover the massive fraud under Tim Walz, propose solutions, and hold state agencies accountable. Today, I will highlight the scale of the problem, outline the work our committee is doing to fight the fraud, and provide a roadmap for other states on how to detect and stop fraud. Minnesota is one of the highest tax states in the nation, and hardworking Minnesotans have been told that they don't pay their fair share for years. In truth, Minnesotans pay much more in taxes than in other states. And when they pay their taxes, they expect that their money is going to things that help our communities: roads, schools, healthcare, and law enforcement. They do not want their tax dollars absconded by criminals to buy resorts and apartment buildings in Kenya, property in Turkey, and luxury homes and cars in the U.S. Tim Walz and his administration have willfully turned a blind eye to crime in the face of countless whistleblower and auditor reports, as well as stories by local investigative journalists and the Center of the American Experiment. These are actual crimes that must be punished. They are crimes against our moral values and erode trust in government. The time for accountability and justice is here. First, we are unearthing staggering amounts of fraud in Minnesota. As far back as 2014, there were credible whistleblower allegations of millions in daycare fraud. Instead of shutting it down, the state minimized whistleblower reports and allowed fraud to grow. Unfortunately, childcare fraud was just the tip of the iceberg. Since 2019, Tim Walz and Minnesota Democrats have allowed fraud to absolutely explode in Minnesota. There's been more than $300 million in the Feeding Our Future child nutrition program scandal, and the Feeding Our Future prosecutions revealed that as many as half of those indicted also ran other Medicaid-funded programs. Yet despite this being known back in 2023, Tim Walz and his agencies have done nothing to stop those defendants from getting additional state money. We have now found fraud in multiple Medicaid programs, including autism centers, sober homes, non-emergency medical transportation, integrated community support.
See, halfway houses were doing that in Florida for a long time. Like rehab centers were doing that forever. And there were rehabs you'd go to in Florida where you would be coming up on your 30 days when your insurance would like say, okay, we're not going to pay for it anymore. And they would like give people dope and shit. So they'd fail their drug test. Insurance kicks back in, they get another month. It's crazy.
And housing stabilization. Just last month, our committee held a hearing on credible allegations of fraud in two new areas: adult day services and assisted living. First, U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson, the leading prosecutor in these cases from the Biden administration and the Trump administration, says the fraud could be an astronomical $9 billion. In the face of mounting reports and literal criminal indictments and convictions, the Walz administration has repeatedly and publicly denied or downplayed the fraud. Just last January, the commissioner of DHS, Jody Harpstead, who'd been on the job for 5.5 years, said, "There's a lot more rumors of fraud than there is actual fraud." You cannot make this up. The Walz administration has been gaslighting Minnesotans on the scale of the fraud problem for years. In response, when Republicans took control or ended Democrat control of the Minnesota House last year, we created the Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Committee. Since last February, we have held 15 hearings where we have grilled officials, exposed new areas of fraud, and repeatedly flagged failures in internal controls. I authored a new law to expand whistleblower protection, and we created a portal, mnfraud.com, resulting in a surge of new whistleblower reports that our amazing staff is still working through. Under the leadership of our Vice Chair, Patty Anderson, we passed a bipartisan bill in the Senate to create an independent Office of Inspector General. When it got to the House, Democrats killed it because the DHS commissioner testified against it. The Tim Walz administration has utterly failed to protect Minnesota taxpayers and vulnerable citizens, ignoring years of credible reports and retaliating against those who spoke up, often by claiming they were racist or Islamophobic. Tim Walz and the Democrats have repeatedly protected
Isn't that funny? So you find fraud, you go to report it, and they say, you're a racist, you're Islamophobe, or whatever the fuck. Like, that is where this comes from. It comes from sit down, shut up, you're a bad person if you have anything to say about this. And they expect that people are just going to roll over for societal acceptance or whatever. That's what they want. They don't actually care about the issues that they're pointing at you. They're weaponizing empathy against you. That's what they want.
their political base at the expense of all Minnesotans. Other states should learn from the failures of the Walz administration. So I'll give you a quick roadmap on how to find and stop fraud.
Here, I'll check that out.
First, culture matters. Fraud flourishes when leaders ignore it and criminals see they can get away with it. Second, fraud flourishes when basic internal controls are not followed. This is not complicated. Third, you have to look at the intersections of relationships in businesses in multiple program areas in Medicaid. It's a huge red flag that has been ignored in our state. Finally, it is important to say what is true and to stand up against fake allegations of racism or Islamophobia. Crime is crime, no matter who is committing it. It is true that the majority of the fraud in Minnesota has taken place in the Somali community.
Oh, no, I've already
It's also
seen...
true that some of our best whistleblowers
Rude.
are from the Somali community.
Rude, I've already seen that. I've already seen that video. That's the one where he's standing in front and the car takes off and it doesn't really look like it hits the guy because the other officer is in the way of the shot. That's why I showed the one that I showed, because you actually see the car hit the guy. I can pull it up again. You know, like, all right, so there's the officer that fired the shots, and his body moves with the car because she hit the guy. He is facing this way, and by the end, he's facing this way because she hit him with the car. Oh, yeah, it's all good, dude. Yeah. But no, I watched that. Yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, I can totally see why people would be mad watching that first video. This one, on the other hand, is the one that, like, just completely destroys that whole idea. You know what I mean? And like I said, I'm not celebrating this lady's death, but dude, she could have avoided that entire situation. Like her death is entirely on her. You know, when you look at like how violent people have been to these ICE agents and stuff, because again, the politicians aren't going to impede them because they don't want to get pepperballed and thrown in jail. So they're going to let citizens go out there and do it. When you look at how these guys have, like, people have literally targeted them for shootings. Like, they go to ICE facilities and open fire on these people. One guy got shot in the neck. There was the other guy that, like, he opened fire on a couple ICE people in front of one of their facilities and ended up killing 2 of the detainees that they had. Like, when you look at, and I mean, like, you know, every video you see of ICE being out there, it's people yelling at them and throwing shit at them and all this. If you hit one of them with your car, that's just, it's a rip bozo, man. I mean, like, you fucking did that yourself, right? I don't feel sorry for her at all. I don't. I mean, I feel terrible that someone got killed today. Like, uselessly, because she really didn't need to put herself in a position to be killed, but she did put herself in a position to be killed. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really, truly unfortunate.
Democrats refuse to acknowledge this truth, and that has enabled criminals to steal billions and hurt our vulnerable citizens. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity.
People aren't going to be talking about this shooting for very long. Because, I mean, like, that video... What up, Ashton? Good to see you, man. That video just shows that she hit the fucking officer with her car, and he fired on her. And that's it. They're not going to get prosecuted. They're not going to go to jail. She did not get murdered. She just died uselessly, unfortunately. And when I say uselessly, I'm not saying she was useless. I'm saying her death was a useless death that did not need to happen. But if she wasn't blocking traffic... Yeah, same, Rude. Yeah. There you go. There you go, Ashton. Apparently you're doing something right. What's up, Darth Grumpy? Good to see you, man. Good to see you. But yeah, I mean, it's it sucks that we're here, right? Like, my anger, really, she put herself in a stupid situation and created an escalation that risked more than just her own life. Right. She had a passenger in the car with her. You know what I mean? Like, oh, here, Ashton, I'll show you. So, this is the angle that proves that, that she hit the officer. Because, see, so here, right here, is the officer. And then watch as the car, she accelerates and pushes the officer out of the way. I mean, like, she pushes the guy out of the way. And then he starts firing. You know? And see, the anger, what's funny is, you know, people, their anger is directed at the federal government for this. And they're so trick fucked because their anger isn't directed at the people who are telling them this is a bad thing and we're not going to do anything about it. And then they take a completely neutral stance. Because the politicians that are against this stuff, they're not going to go out there and impede this. They can't. Otherwise they'd go to jail, right? Just like the citizens who go out there and do it go to jail. These politicians don't want to go to jail. They don't want to get pepperballed in the face. So they'll let the citizens go and do it. And then they'll stand on their fucking graves and act and use it for political gain. That is what is so sick about this to me, dude. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you know. But at the end of the day, bro, it's a Rip Bozo. Like, she's fucking... it sucks that she's dead. She didn't have to die. But, you know. I went on a channel to talk civil. She go, oh, I do feel like the shots were more retaliation than offense, though. But other than that, I couldn't care. Yeah, I mean, that's fair, though, right? Like, you know, at the same time, though, that officer is not going to go to jail. He's not going to go to jail. His actions were completely justified. She hit a federal officer with her fucking car. Like, give me a break. You know what I mean? So that's like, you know, again, I'm not like celebrating this lady's death, but like she could have easily moved her fucking car out of the middle of the road because she was blocking traffic, and she'd still be alive right now. You know what I mean?
Opportunity to share the lessons from Minnesota and for your help in investigating these crimes. The time for justice and accountability is now.
Ashton, you know better than to talk civilly.
I now recognize Representative Hudson for his opening statement.
Chairman, ranking member, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today for the record. I am Minnesota State Representative Walter Hudson, a second-term member who sits on our House Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Committee. The recent national conversation about fraud in Minnesota has been fraught with distractions, diverting from critical concerns regarding process, policy, and oversight to sideshow concerns about personalities and partisan politics. My role here today is to cut through all of that and provide you with a clear picture of a culture which has developed over many years around the several generous benefit programs which Minnesota provides to our residents. Well-documented oversight failures have led to a lack of program integrity, creating incentives for people to monetize programs beyond their legislative intent to turn benefits into business. Contrary to the claim just made by the ranking member that there is no evidence of this fraud, attached to my written testimony, you will find a document which collates several reports made over the past 15 years by Minnesota's nonpartisan Office of Legislative Auditor, along with transcripts of each of our hearings from the Fraud Committee, where we heard directly from staff and leaders within the state agencies which administer these programs. Here's what that record indicates. Within the state of Minnesota, government oversight has been unable to keep up with program expansion due to a combination of factors. One, rapid expansion of funding and provider participation. Two, payment systems that prioritize access and speed. Three, verification mechanisms that occur after funds are distributed. Four, oversight capacity that does not scale with spending. And five, diffuse accountability across agencies and contractors. This combination of factors has fostered a booming new sector of the economy that relies upon the continuation of and expansion of government programs to fuel private sector profits.
And that includes state taxes and federal taxes. Don't forget, you can live in another state and some of your taxes going to these programs are going to people in other states. Which, here's my thing, right? If it's an American citizen and they need it, they're on disability, maybe they got in a car accident and it fucking paralyzed them from the waist down. I'll be honest, I really don't have a problem with my money going to those people. Because, you need it. Like, we're not going to let paraplegics, like, starve in the streets. We're not going to do that, right? But when you look at the volume of the amount of money that is going to these different programs, and you're seeing how stretched thin, really, like if you took all the money in Minnesota that they've attributed to fraud and you spread it out between the people that actually need it, they would probably be living in Big Sur. Okay? That's the crazy thing, right? Instead, what we have is a bunch of people that are abusing the system and taking money that is not theirs to fund, as we're seeing here, Ferraris, Porsches, properties in other countries, vacations. It's like, this is ridiculous.
I want to be clear. Even when the law is being followed precisely by every jot and tittle, incentives still exist to abuse these programs and waste taxpayer.
Yes, Rude. I'm actually going to talk about that later. Yeah, I have that tabbed up. I wanted to go through that. We seized 2 tankers that, from what we're being told, they had Russian flags, but there's also people that are saying that they were really Venezuelan boats that changed their flags, and then they were being escorted by a Russian submarine, and they're all full of oil.
Dollars by diverting funding to profit centers rather than providing a safety net for those in temporary need. Now, criminal fraud is rampant. Deputy U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson, serving the District of Minnesota, has said that he could keep 1,000 prosecutors busy. But he's limited to a mere 25, only 5 of which are tasked with building fraud cases. He estimates that the total amount of criminal fraud over 5 years may reach $9 billion, which is fully 1/2 of the money that has been directed to these programs by the state.
Holy
Governor Tim Walz
shit.
and other stakeholders
Half of the money that was allotted to the state for these government programs was used fraudulently. That's insane.
dispute that assessment. The point I wish to emphasize is this.
And see, this is one thing, and just on a personal note, I would be willing to, like, I'm not an anti-tax guy, okay? Like, I think, there's a lot of libertarians that say taxation is theft, and they really don't understand, like, how much taxation actually does, like, benefit the quality of life of people, Because without taxes, who's going to pay for disability and people who actually can't, like, truly fend for themselves at all in this economy, right? Like, people who, you break your neck in a car accident, so you just starve in the street? No. Like, that makes no sense whatsoever. So, I'm not opposed to taxes, But I do think that if I'm going to pay taxes, there needs to be a complete breakdown given publicly to the people who are paying taxes of where every dollar goes. And that could be a stack of paper this long. I don't give a shit. I don't care. That needs to be given to the people. It needs to be, with constant updates. Because if we're going to pay this money into something, we need to fucking know where it's going.
Whatever the actual number is, the full scope of the problem is not just criminal fraud, but a culture of profiting from government programs in perpetuity, not as a safety net, but as an industry. I've personally met and had discussions with folks who identify themselves as consultants for multiple entities accepting government benefits. They have made a career out of showing people how to leverage the gaps in government oversight to maximize benefit payments. Now, such conduct may not actually break the law, and that's the point. We have a system whereby an entire industry can operate under the color of law, raking in tremendous profits for individuals, all while having no incentive to save the taxpayer money or lift legitimate beneficiaries out of need. Instead, as the market for funneling benefits into businesses increases, so too does the perceived need for benevolent services. If nothing changes, if oversight is not tightened, if incentives are not changed, spending on these programs will only continue to increase with no commensurate increase in either public good or public confidence in our governing institutions.
And again, I say this all the time. The way the incentive structure for budgets is done within our government is you're given a budget. If you spend more and go into a deficit, they allocate more money to your budget. If you spend less, they allocate less money to your budget. So the incentive structure that's set up, hold on. Sorry, my car alarm was going off. So if they spend less, they allocate less money to your budget. So to avoid a deficit, what they do is they waste whatever money after they spend on whatever particular thing is left over in the budget. This gets wasted so they can maintain the same budget the next time. That's what happens. No one argues that.
Thank you for the opportunity to submit this testimony for the record. I look forward to answering what questions I can.
Thank you. I now recognize Representative Rarick for her opening statement.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. For the record, my name is Marion Rarick, and I am currently serving in the Minnesota House of Representatives in House District 29B. I am a member
Go, Chico. What's up, brother?
Fraud Prevention
Welcome in, my man.
Oversight Committee, which was recently formed in January of 25. I was first asked to serve on the committee on January 4th, and soon after, the 5 Republican members began to meet. During one of those discussions, I was asked to reach out to the Department of Human Services whistleblowers on X, now called Minnesota Staff Fraud Reporting Commentary.
Yeah.
I had been following them in the previous year. I reached out through a direct...
Again, the whistleblowers went on X. They went on X, and they used a government official X account to blow the whistle on all this. And they had to get it shut down and open a new account or change the name, one of the two. I forget exactly what it was. But they had to change the name. So they had to take what was an official account, official government account, and make it a non-official government account. That first account does not exist anymore.
Tweet on X on January 16th, and the very same day I got a response back that yes, they would be willing to speak to the Fraud Prevention Committee. Since that first contact, Chair Robbins and I and Representative Hudson have had multiple conference calls with them, and we have had one in-person meeting.
At first, it started as 500. Now it's up to 1,000 whistleblowers.
At that meeting, they were both former and current employees. I've continued to message with them very often, sometimes daily, and their collective message has been completely consistent. Instead of focusing on fraudsters, DHS leadership instead focused its surveillance on employees. Since then, their expressed fear of retaliation has intensified under an avalanche of fraud in Minnesota. Their numbers have grown from 480 DHS employees, both current and former, to over 1,000 across multiple state agencies. They have told me repeatedly how grateful they are to the House Fraud Prevention Committee for focusing our attention on fraud in the state programs, using their insight.
And see, remember, when everyone was trashing Doge and saying there is no fraud, there is none of this, yada yada, there is no fraud, there is no fraud, there is no fraud. Now all this is coming up. Now there's investigations in multiple states. You know what I mean? Like, it's insane. The scope of how much is coming out. Oh yeah, that happens, dude. It's, you can't really expect much less. You know what I mean?
Information while keeping them completely protected. They have explained that they live in a constant state of fear of retaliation. One only has to look at what happened to Faye Bernstein to understand why. In a very recent Newsweek article dated December 13th of 25, Ms. Bernstein, a former compliance specialist, stated, Minnesota DHS functions in the opposite manner as you would think. Employees who suggest improvements or heaven forbid report fraud, then face significant retaliation. The messenger is shot. In 2019, Bernstein said she alerted Minnesota DHS officials to sloppy contracting practices that were not legally compliant. But it's not what most people would even consider fraud. She says she was later escorted out of the building, faced lengthy investigation, got trespassed from all DHS owned and leased properties, and received involuntary transfer to another state agency.
Yep.
So she said.
They were going to make that bitch mop floors in a different agency.
So today, if someone asks me, should I report fraud within DHS, I say no, no, no. It is career suicide plus a whole lot more. So let's talk about that plus a whole lot more. In our face-to-face meetings with a group of whistleblowers, they revealed that retaliation now includes threats of being fired with cause, which means you do not get unemployment insurance in the state of Minnesota, being blacklisted from all state agencies, and I would note most likely our largest counties as well, which are Democrat-run. And then there was a veiled threat of the use of military intelligence against them. They later informed me that it was discovered that in some targeted employees or suspected whistleblowers' personnel files were pictures of their homes and their cars. They also described that supervisors asked them questions about their families that to them felt like a threat.
And remember, on Monday, when we covered Tim Walz talking about this after he dropped out of the race, he was saying there's state representatives that are playing hide and seek with potential whistleblowers. Obviously, they have to.
One example was, we need to know where your kids go to school and where their bus stops are. I will also note that whistleblowers we spoke to described many times that DHS used surveillance programs to surveil employees' emails and chats and other communications, looking for keywords like fraud, double billing, underspending, and overpayments. One example that the whistleblowers let me know about Lieutenant Governor Flanagan. April 12th, 2024. Flanagan comes to a DHS Health and Human Services Equity Conference at the Heritage Center and Brooklyn Center. On stage, Flanagan acknowledges the X account and the fraud.
Right, Coco, exactly,
dude.
dude.
Denounced the X users and called them weirdos and losers sitting in their mother's basement. This was in a public setting with hundreds of participants and it elicited gasps among the crowd. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh yeah, they're fucked, man. They're cooked. These guys are going down. When was this? 3 months ago. 8 charged a massive Minnesota housing stabilization fraud scheme. So, like, there's just fraud everywhere in this state. Everywhere. This was 3 months ago. They were charging people for fraud in the housing stabilization. This is crazy. All right. So, this morning, 2 tankers were captured. And one of them, so check it out. It says, the U.S. Coast Guard seizes 2 Venezuelan Shadow Fleet tankers in pre-dawn raids. The U.S. seized MV Bella 1 in the North Atlantic after pursuit by the U.S. Coast Guard. And the MT Sophia near the Caribbean, targeting vessels suspected of smuggling sanctioned Venezuelan oil that funds narco-terrorism. Which, you know, I whenever I hear the word terrorism, it just makes me cringe. Like, I grew up in the 2000s, you know what I mean? Like, that was thrown in our faces to justify a whole bunch of really a bunch of bullshit. But Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem praised the crew's grit through storms, declaring, "You can run, but you can't hide," while the UK provided key logistical support. Russia called the actions piracy and sent warships too late as the seizures enforce a post-Maduro blockade allowing only U.S.-approved oil trade. I mean, if Russia wants to come over here and get the smoke, they can get the smoke, but they're going to get the fucking smoke if they do, right? So here is the video of these SF guys taking the oil. Actually, you know what? Give me just a sec. I use the bathroom. All right. So this is a video of these SF guys, or Coast Guard guys, going down there and taking these 2 boats.
The Trump administration has just announced the seizure of 2 oil tankers connected to Venezuela. Videos released by U.S. Southern Command and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem reveal the boarding of both ships by the U.S. Coast Guard. Here to discuss this breaking news is The Hill's Deputy Managing Editor, Sarakshi Rai. Hey, Sarakshi, so what do we know so far about these 2 seizures?
That's right, dude. Stunning development today. You know, the U.S. military seized 2 oil tankers on Wednesday as it tries to choke off most of the Venezuelan exports of crude oil, including the seizure of a Russian-flagged tanker that had been evading American forces for weeks. Now, this really escalates this confrontation with Moscow after the ouster of its ally, Nicolas Maduro. You know, we know that we saw this military operation to really capture Nicolas Maduro from Caracas over the weekend. And, you know, the military issued a statement saying that the U.S. forces has seized the Russian-flagged vessel in the North Atlantic between Scotland and Iceland.
I don't know if you guys have ever played Rust, but cargo ship is one of my favorite little monument activities in that game. So that's where, you know, you can get up on it by boat, or you can just fly like, you know, one of the little helis right up on top of it. Just you jump out, you got to say bye to the heli, but you get plenty of resources on there to where you really wouldn't need. Yeah, the money's kind of like not even that important at that point. But so this is like some straight Rust shit. I love it.
For violating U.S. sanctions. Now, it later said in a separate statement that it had apprehended a stateless, sanctioned dark fleet motor tanker, the MT Sophia, in international waters in the Caribbean, where it was conducting illicit activities, and the ship was being escorted to the United States. So the seizure of 2 oil tankers really dominating the news this morning after those statements from the U.S. military, Drew.
And Sarakshi, one of those tankers named the Bella 1 had been chased by U.S. Coast Guard for weeks now. What can you tell us about how this pursuit finally ended?
That's right. The Coast Guard boarded this Russian tanker after a roughly 2-week assault. Now, we have this information from U.S. officials that have been briefed on the operation. Now, the Coast Guard encountered no resistance or hostility from the crew. Now, this was given to the New York Times on the condition of anonymity to discuss this very sensitive military operation. Now, we've also heard from Russia's Ministry of Transport, who confirmed that the U.S. forces had boarded the vessel in international waters. And they also added in a statement that they had lost all contact with this vessel as well. Now, the Russian state-owned broadcaster RT published images of a helicopter approaching the Russian-flagged tanker, which was being pursued by the U.S. Coast Guard, and said it appeared that the U.S. forces were attempting to board. So some really dramatic images coming from the seizure of this oil tanker. Now, interestingly, this tanker that was seized was known recently as the Bella 1, and is now being called the Marinera. It had been registered as a Russian vessel and flagged as a Russian vessel from December 24th onwards. Now, Russia had sent at least 1 naval vessel to meet and escort it as well. And this we know from the U.S. official briefed on this operation as well.
That was like 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks ago, it was flagged. It had Russian flags on it, but before that, it had Venezuelan flags.
Now, there were no Russian vessels in the vicinity of this tanker when the Coast Guard boarded the ship, which, you know, really averted the possibility of a standoff between U.S. and Russian forces. Now, we also know from a statement.
Why the fuck? Okay, look. Right, exactly, dude, exactly. That's my question. Why the fuck would some just random Russian oil tanker be out in the Caribbean? That makes absolutely no sense.
From the UK that they said that they helped the United States to board this Russian flagged tanker, and they provided air surveillance and naval support vessel as well. And they also had their bases open to American military assets as well. Now, in a statement, you know, the British Defense Ministry said that while initially flying a false flag, the tanker had turned off its transponders while at sea and sought to reflag the vessel while being pursued. Now, they also said that the UK took the action because the vessel was sanctioned by the US under its measures against Iran. So very, you know, dramatic statements coming out from the UK and the US military as well as Russia on this ship's efforts to evade authorities, you know. And really what we saw was real time. You know, this was, you know, really being followed in real time by social media observers and analysts who really tracked this vessel as the U.S. moved military assets to the U.K. in recent days. So just a dramatic series of events unfolding today, Drew.
Well, and, you know, and that's something that when Teriak was on this past weekend, this is something he talked about, where he was saying how, like, There's a shitload of American military equipment moving into the UK right now. Like a shitload. And it's probably them getting ready to go over into Iran. Because, I mean, dude, the IRGC is going to fall within the next 2 weeks. And they basically already have lost an entire city, right?
Now, the Bella 1 had been linked to Russia. It changed its flag to a Russian one during this pursuit, and there were reports of a possible Russian submarine escorting it. Moscow came out with a statement condemning its seizure. Does this risk inflaming tensions between the U.S. and Russia?
Russia don't want the smoke.
That's right. You know, this raises big questions.
Look, we've been trying to help them end this war over in Ukraine, and they're both being they're being cunts about it. So, fuck Russia, dude. Yo, what up, Jared? I'm not seeing Rude's thing.
Questions about how Russia will respond and whether things could escalate from there. You know, it's an incredibly unusual situation, though, and it appears that, you know, this oil tanker switched to a Russian flag.
International law is written and enforced by countries that can enforce international law. Okay. You know who's not writing international law? Cuba. You know who's not writing international law? Belgium. You know who's not writing international law? None of the countries that can. Scott Hodvet, what's going on, my brother? Good to see you. None of the countries that can enforce international law.
While being pursued by the U.S., hoping that would provide it some protection, which it didn't ultimately. And Russia reportedly deployed a submarine to help escort the ship as well, right? But President Trump ordered its seizure anyhow. So we'll really need to see how Putin...
See, here's my thing, right? So, you know, while Europe is all up in arms and they hate Russia and all this, they have literally spent more money on Russian oil. Oh, got it. They have spent more money on Russian oil than they've given Ukraine in aid. So more money from Europe has gone to Russia than it has to Ukraine. And if Venezuela is such an important oil hub for Russia, what does that tell you? Europeans are buying Venezuelan oil as well. I mean, it's a simple 1 + 1 = 2. You know what I mean? So if Europe gets all up in arms about this oil tanker bullshit, it's just because the people they're buying their oil from are getting hurt by this.
In response to the slap in the face in his own backyard, Drew.
The Secretary Noem is saying that these seizures were coordinated by the Justice Department, Defense Department, and Homeland Security. That is a lot of manpower in this operation. What do you think this says about the U.S.'s plans for seizures of this type moving forward?
That's right. You know, the message we're hearing from the Trump administration with this move is that it shows that it's serious about stopping these dark fleet tankers wherever they're operating, right? This trip really tried a very new strategy to avoid U.S. seizure, and it didn't work. So that might make these tankers less likely to try this again. But this dark fleet has been avoiding sanctions for years, so I expect we'll see both sides continue to pursue new strategies while the U.S. continues to kind of chase after them and seize some of these tankers, Drew.
Now, all of this, of course, days after the capture of Nicolas Maduro. What is the White House saying about what this seizure or seizures like this could mean for the future military actions surrounding Venezuela?
The message coming from the White House that they're 100% behind these operations and they're not going to stop. They're going to continue going after these sanctioned oil.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Russia and China were both they were both buying oil from Venezuela. 100%. And like honestly, fuck China and Russia. So, you know, it's that kind of thing. Like, look, if they want to, you know, go to war with countries over on their side of the world, they can. Stay the fuck out of my backyard. That's what this really is. This is a NIMBY situation. Not in my backyard, right?
Tankers, Drew, and essentially the White House saying that they're completely in the right because these vessels have all been sanctioned by the U.S. and they're going to continue pursuing this dark fleet as of right now, Drew.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Sarakshi Rai, thanks so much for your time.
All right, so this is the White House's defense on the seizure of these oil tankers. I mean, it's really, dude, like, this is our hemisphere. This is what we're defending. You know what I mean? I'm just glad. So I grew up in the 2000s when they tell us we were fighting, you know, these insurgency groups, and, you know, we were going in to, like, take WMDs and all that, and they wouldn't tell us that we were going over there to seize oil. At least this administration is willing to fucking say it. I like, you know, and we're not even at war right now. People aren't being killed en masse. There's not soldiers on the ground. We're just going in, yoinking fucking foreign leaders that are already indicted and have multi-million-dollar bounties on their heads in our country. I mean, like, you know, Biden raised the what was it, a 10 or $15 million bounty to 25 million while he was in office, and they just didn't fucking do anything about it. So, like, you know, this isn't just a Trump thing. Nothing he did was illegal. They arrested that motherfucker. They busted into his crib. They arrested him. They took out his fucking, you know, Cuban paramilitary guards, and we're gonna fucking take their oil now. You know what I mean? Like, my rice eating supreme leader. But he eats a lot, bro. He eats a lot of rice. You know, Xi Jinping, like, I could see him instead of a pot of honey, he's just got a pot of rice. You know what I mean? He looks like Pooh Bear.
Let's bring in our White House correspondent, Monica Alba. Monica, a lot to unpack there, but of course starting there on Venezuela and some of these details about the oil. Interesting to hear that conversations are happening. That means that how it was described as the money, all profits would first come into the United States, into legitimate American banks. They're sort of invoking some private sector involvement here. And then that money eventually gets divided up, gets distributed, gets dispersed with the discretion being to the United States, the president determining what happens with that money, but saying that it would ultimately also benefit Venezuelans. A lot of questions still about that plan exactly, but what do we make of this?
Yeah, I think the mechanics of all that are still a bit of an open question, Savannah, and we know that that's going to be discussed as the Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, meets with oil executives today and later this week as well. And there will be a meeting on Friday here at the White House where President Trump will meet with representatives from Chevron, from ExxonMobil, and from ConocoPhillips to discuss how some of this might actually work. You did get a little bit more...
Yeah, dude, fuck Keir Starmer. Honestly. Fuck Keir Starmer.
Detail from Caroline Levitt there, who said essentially that the oil, those initial 30 to 50 million barrels.
There's a massive effort to dump a shitload of money into this like meat grinder that is the Ukraine-Russia war. And it's those kinds of things. Like, that's why I want to stop giving money to Israel the way we are, because they're just killing a bunch of people in Gaza, right? Now, I'm not like a free Palestine kind of guy, but, you know, like, I want my tax money to go to benefiting American citizens. Taking out Venezuela, that benefits American citizens. They're not a friend. They have not been a friendly country to us. And they fucked us years ago. Chavez fucked us years ago by cutting out Exxon and ConocoPhillips.
Will be arriving here at home, quote, very soon, she said. She said the U.S. government has already been marketing this crude oil in the global marketplace for the benefit of the U.S. And then, yes, I also picked up on that and think there are some questions about how this is going to work. The idea that the funds will be dispersed for the benefit of the American people and the Venezuelan people at the discretion of the United States government. So that does require a lot of private sector engagement. And then there are also questions about just the timeline to all of this. Remember that President Trump sort of gave an indication to our own Kristen Welker, that maybe this would happen in terms of rebuilding the oil infrastructure and getting this up to speed in about 18 months or so. So over the next year and a half, do oil executives agree with that timeline? Is that something?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And that's why, like, liberals are very, very, very happy to keep this war over there going, because it's a bunch of, like, Orthodox Christians that are killing each other by the tens of thousands, like, every month. It's ridiculous.
Something that's feasible. How long is this going to take? But senior administration officials had told us that this is a process that has started immediately. It's underway and will continue, quote, indefinitely. So I do think that that's notable. And I think, you had a White House and a press secretary here trying to explain, but really delve into this aspect of the oil strategy, which raises all these questions about what we were talking about earlier, Savannah, which is the capture of Nicolas Maduro, the indictment against him and his wife. Doesn't mention oil, doesn't have to do with oil, right? It's focused on drug trafficking charges and other alleged crimes in that indictment. This is a completely different strategy that now the White House, the Trump administration overall, is very much focused on as what's going to happen as a result of changing and now deferring to the interim leader, Delcy Rodriguez, who is acting right now as the head of state, who is, according to the White House, according to Caroline Leavitt, cooperating and working with the U.S. on this plan for the oil.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news.
So this is some news. I'm a big fan of this, right? So Trump posted on Truth Social earlier. He said, "For a very long time, buying and owning a home was considered the pinnacle of the American dream. It was the reward for working hard and doing the right thing, but now, because of the record high inflation caused by Joe Biden and the Democrats in Congress and all of the Republicans that were in office before you two," that's obviously a political statement. Republicans, they've been part of this shit as well, okay? "The American dream is increasingly out of reach for far too many people, especially younger Americans. It's for that reason and much more that I am immediately taking steps to ban large institutional investors from buying more single-family homes, and I will be calling on Congress to..." Oh, yeah, 100%. Rude, 100%. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. They did traffic a shitload of drugs into the country. Like he's had massive indictments on him for that very specific thing for like a decade now. You know what I mean? So like, it's not the only reason that they went over there. And anyone who thinks that's the only reason is completely misinformed. I agree with you to that degree. But no, he for sure was a drug trafficker. Like, he's a piece of shit, straight up. Like, I remember when I was in like my late teens and early 20s, I remember there was a family that moved into my neighborhood that, like, the father was a doctor, and they were like a pretty like decently, like they lived decently, middle-class family from Venezuela. And from everything that Chavez and Maduro did over there, they just completely destroyed the economy. I mean, like, I'm talking, imagine spending your entire life doing things the smart way, and then the government that's in control destroys your life. That's why they had to move. They had to go, So he's a bad guy, but at the end of the day, another reason that we went over there was the oil. That's just the truth. And honestly, when it comes to like people like Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela, the reason I'm okay with it is because it's going to benefit me greatly. Gas is going to go down again. You know what I mean? This is going to definitely help. Like, I'm in logistics. A lot of the cost that goes into moving something from point A to point B is the gas. That cost, moving things from point A to point B, goes into the price that's set to sell it at the market resale price. So, if we're getting large influx of oil into the country that we can refine and turn into gasoline, that's going to make prices cheaper here for everything. And that goes for like Amazon and all those too, right? Well, Amazon's working on like going completely electric or some shit right now, which, hey, do what you do. Like if that's cheaper for you, more power to you, right? But as of right now, electric vehicles cannot tote 48,000 pounds worth of cargo. That's a diesel engine that does that. And if us bringing this oil in here makes prices cheaper for me and the people in my country, I'm with it. When we went over to Iraq and Afghanistan, we were going over there for their gold, for their oil, and, you know, it did nothing for us, but at the same time, we were also in a protracted war, too. So a lot of the oil that we were using was going into the machines that we were using for the war. All the logistical infrastructure that we have set up in our military, that's what makes our military so great. We have the most refined logistical infrastructure when it comes from getting a bunch of things from one place to another. And in order to do that, it takes a lot of oil. In these cases, we don't have even a fraction of the equipment that we had over in the Middle East. Like even a fraction of a fraction, right? So there's a lot of working parts to these two different narratives. But this right here is huge because aren't electric cars torque monsters? I don't know what that means. I don't know too much about electric cars, man, honestly. I haven't really looked into them all that much. Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. Diesel's what the country literally runs on. That's what gets the most amount of our trade and GDP moving around the country is diesel. But this right here, not having these massive investment firms owning single-family homes is so huge. Because when you have an investment firm, you're basing your price off of what is going to do the best for your investors. And that always means raising the price. Always. Or acquiring a lot and making a profit off of it. So, which means raising the price. If you acquire a lot and raise the price a little bit, you still raise the price. So having more of an independent buyer's market is going to be massive. Massive for the housing crisis. Oh yeah, 100%. Exactly, Kokoshiko. Especially with like the way these massive data centers that they're building all over the country for AI right now, they require so much energy for these things in order to keep like AI going the way that's going. Because, you know, with companies like Palantir and you know, I don't know if Grok falls under X or it's like XAI or whatever, but all these massive AI companies are building these huge data centers and they're taking up tons of electricity. And we need the fuel for that electricity because that electricity comes from somewhere. And you don't get enough of it from the sun or from the wind, right? Especially with a population like ours. And then this was something that really pissed me off. So Gavin Newsom reposts this thing, and it says, Tennessee's Republican Governor Bill Lee has turned down $84 million in federal funds that would have helped feed 700,000 Tennessee kids during the summer months when the school is out. If you do the math on this, because I love how they spell this out, but they don't give all the zeros on this. That's like $100 per kid. That's really not helping fucking anybody. There's 3 summer months. That's 90 days. $1 a day. $1 a day. That's it. This is the kind of thing that really, like, they will use literally anything. Because you gotta think, this guy's the governor of a fucking state. A massive state, by the way. You think he doesn't realize this is only like $100 per kid for the entire summer? He knows that. It's infuriating. It really is. It's fucking infuriating to me. I mean, I just don't... I don't understand. It's like $120 per kid, right? Okay? It's like $1.30 a day. $1.30. It's insane to me, dude. So let's see what let's see what all these dipshits are going over on X right now. Issued should be indicted ASAP on state level for murder, so Trump can't pardon him. He's not. He didn't murder the lady. He didn't murder her. She hit him with her car. That's it. A game collector has completed their entire Xbox 360 game library after 20 years. He estimated it costs around $20,000 and includes 1,353 titles. $4 in store credit from GameStop themselves. That's incredible, dude. That is so... What a fucking awesome post, man. Like, that is hilarious. Leader of the leftist CDP in Japan suggested if Japan keeps saying Japanese first, foreign people won't want to visit Japan. Well, a lot of foreign people already don't want to visit Japan because Japanese people are racist as fuck. They hate everybody but Japanese. I don't want to say all of them do, but a lot of Japanese people don't want people from other cultures coming to their country. Like the Japanese are what the leftists in this country make us out to be. Again, this video.
No!
See? Now here's the thing, right? So look. She backs up, and I don't like I said, I don't even necessarily think that she did it on purpose, right? But she backs up, and look, this guy was blocking traffic as well. So she backs up.
Oh, no.
Now let's watch this guy back here closely. Immediately pushed back with the car. See how you can't see his legs over here? Because they're in front of the fucking car. So he gets pushed out of the way. And then fires. So, just because people say this is murder on X does not mean this is murder. Let's hear what Trump had to say. I have just viewed the clip of the event which took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It was a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was obviously a professional agitator, and the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the... She didn't run him over. She just, like, nudged him with the car, but still. Who seems to have shot her in self-defense. Well, I don't necessarily think it was self-defense, but here's the thing. She hit the guy with her car, and when cops are telling people to get out of their vehicle and you drive away, they're going to shoot you every single time. Based on the attached clip, it's hard to believe he's alive, but he's recovered in the hospital. See, this is... God damn it, Trump. Just stop. Stop commenting on shit. Please. I love Retard Finder, man. He's fucking hilarious. And then Hassan, of course. Hassan, get ready for the worst fucking take imaginable. I hate that I'm liking something that he says, but Nick Fuentes is really, like, kind of just, you know, for a while there, I was liking listening to him, but man, he has some really awful takes, but, like, he is completely fine. She did hit him with the car, though. Like, that's just the fact. Yeah, we saw your reaction when Charlie Kirk got murdered. We don't care. Kyle Rittenhouse. Oh, my God.
Big time.
Let's see what he has to say.
My fellow Americans, it is with overwhelming enthusiasm that I am declaring that anyone who protests or interferes with ICE and their operation, cat is out of the bag. My fellow Americans, it is with overwhelming enthusiasm that I am declaring that anyone who protests or interferes...
It disconnected me. Am I live again? Are we good? I think we're good. I think we're good. That was fucking hilarious. Yeah, absolutely. That's based. I'm so glad he's not, like, actually taken seriously in the public. Pop, I love that video. I've seen enough deploy Kyle Rittenhouse. Yeah. See, here's my thing. I don't think she intentionally hit the guy. I think she was trying to flee, which was dumb enough as it is, right? But she hit the guy with her car. And we can go through this. I'll do it again. I'll do it again. Okay. Here's the cop that fires the shots. See how he just... It's the craziest thing. It's like he moves with the car off of the front of it as in the same speed and everything as it goes by him. How crazy is that? It's insane. I mean, it's almost like she hit the guy with her car. It's almost like she hit a federal agent with her car. Oh, this fucking loser. Watch. And the shots don't get fired until he's hit by the car. Who is this? Oh, is this the chick that got popped today? Yikes. George Floyd wouldn't have stood for this. Oh my God. Dude, X is wild now, bro. X is wild.
driving behind her. They clearly wanted her out of there because she was the main car leading the protest, is my understanding. I talked to another guy who was driving behind her, but she was very successful in blocking traffic. She was doing what she was set out to do, and so they wanted to get her the hell out of there. Yeah.
So it looked like she was impeding ICE vehicles.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
That was her goal. They clearly wanted her.
See? Shut, man. Oh, he's not going to do that. Yeah. Look. I like a lot of Andrew's takes. And this is true, don't get me wrong. He's not going to fucking do that. He's not going to mobilize the National Guard against ICE. See, and then you have these bad actors. They shot her 3 times in the head as she was fleeing. That's not even true. That didn't even happen. She just hit the guy with her fucking car. Yeah, this is a good point. If she successfully ran him over and killed him, if she killed him when she was getting away and got away, they would all be celebrating all over Twitter. So don't forget that. I know, Rude. Yeah, you're not lying. You're not lying. Yep. Well, good use of the word "was" there, because I'm sure she doesn't look very good right now. Dr. Groiber says, ICE just mag dumped a libtard in Minnesota and you're blackpilling. Rough. Uh-oh, here we go. Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's pretty consistent what the consensus is, you know? Like, it looks like yeah, that was stupid. He shouldn't. He's such a fucking idiot, man. Trump is such a dipshit. He needs to stay off of social media. He's a fucking boomer who doesn't understand that everything you put online is going to be online. And that's that. Yeah. That's just a close-up of the video from earlier. There's the cop, and there goes his body. Boom. And see, Hassan just lies, dude. He just fucking lies. This is the dude that shot the bystander. Hassan's calling her... Yeah. He's calling her a bystander, They want her to be a victim so bad. Move the guy more likely to steal your bike. I've seen all these. It was funny for a little bit. It's kind of old now. Not gonna lie.
Hey, was you riding with her? Did you call any of your people yet? So you don't got none of her
I know, dude. I know.
family members or anybody number? Do you know anybody on her Facebook? Alright, damn. Bro, they just killed her, bro.
Oh my god, bro, that's awful. The memes on this are gonna be fucking hilarious, though. By the way. Jill Floyd shirts. I can't drive. Oh my god, that's fucking horrible, dude. That is so funny though. Oh my god, man. I love X, dude. X is like you get some of the best memes on here. It's hilarious. Yeah, that's a lie. He wasn't trying to turn it around. Elmer fraud. Woman drivers, am I right? Yeah, no shit. Let's see if there's anything good happening on YouTube. Oh, there's my stream. Did it, boys. I made it to the front page. It might be my front page, but it is the front page.
Good morning. Yes, come on.
This is the first press briefing since
Lovely
since they took out Maduro.
All right. Dr. Carson, come on up. Thank you so much. Good morning and Happy New Year, everybody. It's great to see you. It's great to be with a very packed room. I'm sorry we kept you all very busy over the holiday break. And I know there is a lot of news out there today, both here at home and around the world. I will be happy to take all of your questions on all of that news. But first, I'm really honored to be standing up here today with esteemed members of the President's Cabinet and his health team to make an important announcement with respect to the President's domestic promise to make America healthy again as we kick off the new year. In less than a year in office, the President and his incredible MAHA team have made real progress on this front.
I hate MAHA because it reminds me of that character from the Amanda Show way back when I was a kid. like when Nickelodeon, before people knew Nickelodeon was overrun with PDFs. But the Amanda Show, that the character she had that'd go, Maha! Like, whenever they call it Maha, that's all I associate it with. Is that, like, buck-toothed chick that would yell that.
Here are just a few of the significant MAHA achievements thus far. More than a dozen food manufacturers and trade associations have made commitments to remove artificial and petroleum-based food dyes from their products. The Trump administration took strong action to bar hospitals from performing dangerous, irreversible, life-altering transgender procedures on children. The Trump administration announced funding awards to states through the Rural Health Transformation Program, an unprecedented $50 billion investment established under President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. The Trump administration has also worked with 18 states across the country to ban junk food purchases using SNAP benefits starting this year. And thank you for leading that effort, Secretary Rollins. Additionally, President Trump took historic action to secure most favored nation drug pricing and secured deals with major pharmaceutical companies to massively lower the cost of prescription drugs. And those effects are being implemented as we speak. Americans are going to continue to see the result of these incredible deals the president cut. And I know President Trump and this team behind me worked incredibly hard to lower those drug costs for Americans. On Monday, the CDC adopted common sense updates to America's childhood vaccination schedule based solely on the gold standard of science. This action empowers parents and physicians to make the best individualized decisions to protect our children, while also restoring much-needed confidence in our public health system. And as a MAHA mom myself, I'm very grateful for that. So thank you, Secretary Kennedy. To build on this progress, the Trump administration is now updating federal nutrition standards and guidelines to ensure that Americans have the most accurate, data-driven information supported by science and hard facts, not special interests or partisan ideology. President Trump has tasked two of the great individuals behind me, USDA Secretary Rollins and HHS Secretary Kennedy, with
100%,
collaborating on this
Coco.
vitally important project. And today they are here to officially unveil the 2025 to 2030 Dietary Guidelines for America. These new guidelines are informed by the best and most reliable research on health and nutrition, particularly as it relates to the role of our diets and the prevalence of chronic disease in the country.
So it's just the former triangle that we all grew up with, but backwards. Or upside down. Because see, growing up, I remember growing up, it was like carbs and all that shit was at the bottom, and that was the big side of the pyramid. And then it was fruits and vegetables and protein, dairy, healthy fats at the top. And what people have been saying my entire life is that that pyramid is actually upside down, where most of your diet should come from protein, dairy, and healthy fats and vegetables and fruits, and then sprinkle in a little carbs, you know?
They're also these guidelines are easy to read and understand, so every American, young and old, can access this information that literally has the power to change lives. But these are not just an updated guideline. These are the foundation to all federal food programs in our country. These new guidelines are going to update the food that is served to America's children in our public schools, to the plates that are served to our great men in uniform in our military, our veterans, and the food that they are consuming at the VA. And these new guidelines are also going to impact nutritional programs for the needy in our country, such as WIC and Head Start. Unfortunately, for decades, federal dollars has promoted low-quality, highly processed foods that lead to scores of long-term health issues, which means Americans have gone broke because of these health issues. Faulty dietary guidelines of the past stacked the deck against healthy eating and food options for everyday American families, which has fueled the chronic disease epidemic and jacked up the healthcare costs of households across the country. This failed approach in our public health system ends today. When these guidelines are followed, Americans will be saving themselves thousands of dollars. If we want to cut healthcare costs in our country, we must become a healthier country. According to the CEA, poor diet is the root cause of obesity, which accounts for $400 billion in medical spending each year. A healthier America will lead to a more affordable America. The new dietary guidelines from the Trump administration will ensure federal dollars go to real food to improve public health and therefore save the American people their hard-earned cash over the course of their lives. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Secretary Kennedy. The great people behind me will give remarks, and then we'll get into Q&A for the officials that are here on this specific topic. They will leave because they're all very busy people, and then I will open it up to Q&A with the rest of you on the rest of the news in the world. So thank you, and we'll start with Secretary Kennedy.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
Today marks a decisive change in federal nutrition.
I'm with that, Chuck.
Possible by
If
President
more people
Trump's
fat shamed me, I'd actually go to the fucking gym again.
moms and public health advocates who demanded reform. Today, in accordance with President Trump's directive, Brooke and I will release the dietary guidelines for Americans 2025 to 2030, the most significant reset of federal nutrition policy in history. These guidelines replace corporate-driven assumptions with common sense goals and gold standard scientific integrity. These new guidelines will revolutionize our nation's food culture and make America healthy again. For decades, Americans have grown sicker while healthcare costs have soared. The reason is clear. The hard truth is that our government has been lying to us to protect corporate profit-taking, telling us that these food-like substances were beneficial to public health.
Remember, I don't know how many times I can say this. They write the regulations and then bet on the markets. Rude, yeah. But just remember, guys, they write the regulations and then bet on the markets. And they know how the votes are going to go.
Federal policy promoted and subsidized highly processed foods and refined carbohydrates and turned a blind eye to the disastrous consequences. Today, the lies stop. The new guidelines recognize that whole, nutrient-dense food is the most effective path to better health and lower healthcare costs. Protein and healthy fats are essential and were wrongly discouraged in prior dietary guidelines. We are ending the war on saturated fats. Diets rich in vegetables and fruits reduce disease risk more effectively than many drugs. Whole grains outperform refined carbohydrates. Added sugars, especially sugar-sweetened beverages, drive metabolic disease, and today our government declares war on added sugar. Highly processed foods loaded with additives, added sugar, and excess salt damage health and should be avoided. As Secretary of Health and Human Services, my message is clear: eat real food. Nothing.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, you know, I do my best to not eat a bunch of trash. I'm just lazy. That's really what my problem is. You know what I mean? I don't eat bad. I really don't. I think the drinking is probably what... What's up, Robert Whaley? Good to see you, my man. Welcome in, bro. I'm really just... I'm lazy, and I think, like, you know, beer does not help. It doesn't help the beer gut. You know what I mean?
Matters more for healthcare outcomes, economic productivity, military readiness, and fiscal stability. The dietary guidelines shape dozens of federal feeding programs, including Head Start. These standards affect 45 million school lunches every day.
Well, so not our high quality stuff. You know, like there's a large rude, and like I get what you're talking about. Like our worst quality stuff is tantamount to like dog food in other countries. Absolutely. I agree with you there 100%. Our worst, like, that's like Taco Bell. You know, Taco Bell, I remember, you know, like 13 years ago, it was literally one grade up from dog food. their beef because of how highly processed it was. And if you saw an ingredient list on one of the boxes, because what they do for their beef is they have frozen boxes with a bunch of frozen bags inside, and the bags have little like hook holes on them, and they open it up, they take the bag out, they put it into not a boiler, but like it's like a hot water bath, and then it just sits on these two hooks and melts and becomes hot, and then they take it out and they pour it into a pan, you know, what they call like a deep third, right? But a deep third pan, and then they just spoon that out from a heater onto whatever taco or burrito or whatever. But I'm eating gummy colas and extra salty pretzels. Fair, dude. Those gummy colas are fucking delicious. Yeah, 100% Rude. You're right. It's not as affordable. It's not incredibly, like, outrageous. I will say over the past 5 years, it's gotten ridiculous. So, in 2019, I could go and buy a pack of, like, chicken thighs that were skin on, bone in, right? I could go and buy those for, like, $2.50. They're like $7-8 now. You know what I mean? Like, over the past 5 years, there has been a crazy increase in the cost of meat.
Meals for 1.3 million active duty service members and food served to 9 million veterans in VA hospitals. Today begins the work of aligning those programs with affordable, whole, nutrient-dense food. Implementation requires coordination across the government. I'm working with many of my fellow cabinet secretaries to deliver results. I want to thank Bobby Mukamala, thank you very much, who is the president of the American Medical Association, for committing to mobilize the medical community on nutrition. And I thank also the American Academy of Pediatrics for partnering on this effort. I also look forward to working with Dr. Jay Bhattacharya and Dr. Marty Makary to fund and prioritize rigorous nutrition research at the NIH and at the FDA. The stakes are measurable and severe. A Johns Hopkins analysis estimates that 48% of every federal taxpayer dollar now goes to healthcare. The CDC reports that 90% of healthcare spending treats chronic disease. That means that 40%, 40 cents of every dollar that taxpayers pay in this country is going to treat diseases that could be averted through good food. The United States has the highest obesity and type 2 diabetes rate in the developed world. We spend 3 times more per capita than the European Union on healthcare, yet our life expectancy is 5 years lower, largely due to diet-related chronic disease. Our childhood obesity rate is 5 times higher than countries like France. 1/3 of U.S. teens have prediabetes, over 35% are overweight or obese, and 20% of young adults have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Damn.
77% of military-aged Americans are ineligible for military service because of diet-related conditions. If a foreign adversary sought to destroy the health of our children, to cripple our economy, to weaken our national security, there would be no better strategy than to addict us to ultra-processed foods. It's shocking that our own government helped to drive these cataclysmic changes in our diet. The damage is real, it is preventable, and President Trump has ordered it to end. If the United States reduced obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and Alzheimer's to Japanese levels, we would save approximately $600 billion a year.
Holy shit.
About 50% of Medicare's projected long-term deficit, or $5,000 per family annually. Current policy worsens the problem. 42 million Americans rely on SNAP, where common purchases include sugary drinks, candy, and chips. 78% of SNAP recipients are enrolled in Medicaid. and 90% of Medicaid spending goes to chronic disease. These incentives raise healthcare costs.
I fucking hate that they brought Dr. Oz in, man. That's such, like, he's a loser, dude. He lost to John Fetterman. Like, why would you bring him in? That was not a W.
And undermine health. This must change. A new framework centers on protein and healthy fats, vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. And you can see the food pyramid here. It's upside down, a lot of you will say. But it was actually upside down before, and we just righted it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what people said my entire life, right? Yeah, you can't go wrong making food healthier, absolutely. But this is what people said my entire life, is that it was actually upside down. And the whole grains is what you really want to add the smallest amount of to your diet, but you want to primarily eat protein, dairy, healthy fats, fruits, and vegetables. Like, that's what your diet should really consist of.
For the first time, the dietary guidelines directly address ultra-processed foods and set firm sugar limits in federal procurement, driving a significant reduction in added sugar in school meals. I want to thank President Trump for his leadership and the partners committed to ensuring that federal food dollars support real food and better health. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I am too, Chuck. I'm pro-pot as well.
And I want to introduce my partner.
So's Trump, apparently. He just rescheduled that shit. It was on par with, like, heroin and crack, and now it's a Schedule 3.
And a friend, Brooke Rollins, who is an extraordinary collaborator on this.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. What a honor to be here. I think this is Caroline's first press conference back, and what a great way to start the new year, 2026. I want to thank Secretary Kennedy. Your commitment to the well-being of Americans is such a blessing to this nation. We have been working on these new dietary guidelines really.
Well, and just in case any of you guys didn't know, one of JFK, when he was our president back in the 60s, one of his most popular policies was implementing healthier food and more exercise into schools. That was his, like, main, what people really loved about him. And the country was better off with it, and, you know, that's why, like, where a lot of conspiracy theories come in about JFK is he just pissed so many people off. He pissed off these massive corporations that wanted to sell you fucking, you know, fried pink slime as chicken, and he pissed off Israel by wanting to expose their nuclear weapons program. He pissed off the Russians with the Cuban Missile Crisis. He pissed off the Cubans with the Bay of Pigs. He pissed off the military-industrial complex with the Bay of Pigs. He was against going to Vietnam. I mean, he pissed a lot of people off. But that was his most shining thing when it came to the populace, was he was very, very serious about health, and health being in schools and kids being healthier, right? So if anything, he's just implementing his uncle's ideas of his most popular policies. Like, this is all JFK era, like, Democrat shit that we're doing right here. You know what I mean? This is like none of this is far right, none of this is fascist, none of this is anything like that. This is fucking JFK's, like, most shining policy when it came to public health.
Since almost day one. Bobby and I were voted on the same day and sworn in on the same day. So I think the partnership from minute one has been real and extraordinary. As Secretary Kennedy mentioned, America is in the middle of the worst chronic health crisis in our nation's history. Over 40% of the roughly 73 million children in the United States have at least one chronic health condition, and nearly 90% of healthcare spending goes toward treating people with chronic disease. Secretary Kennedy.
Chuck, yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, it's like, you know, I will say this. So weed has basically been, like, up until July of this year, it was basically legal in Birmingham. It was just being sold as THCA instead of Delta 9 THC, right? So THCA flower is what they called it. But you'd go into like a vape shop and there'd be, you know, like gallon mason jars full of, it's just weed. It's not sprayed shit. It's not synthesized. It's just weed. It was like when they got the results for it, they got it at a specific time in its growth before there was a massive, you know, like THCA turns into Delta 9 THC in heat. So it was just weed and it was fucking everywhere. And it didn't really cause a problem. So I'm not necessarily like for legalization. I just, you know, I think a lot of people could benefit from it medicinally. And yeah. Well, it's not fake though. Yeah, the THCA stuff it was just weed. It really was. You know, I've never been a weed fan. I never liked smoking it. Whenever I smoke it, it fucks my head up. Like, it just doesn't work right with me. But for other people, it really helps them out. You know, my grandmother, she broke her neck in the 80s, and she smoked weed my entire life. And it was very good for her, you know? So.
He mentioned that, but it is really important to keep underscoring that fact. This crisis is unacceptable. It prevents Americans from living healthy and happy lives. And for decades under both Republicans and Democrats, federal incentives have promoted low quality, highly processed foods and pharmaceutical interventions instead of prevention.
I'm so glad that she brought that up because, like, it's not just the Democrats that did this. Like, the old Republican Party was fucking god-awful too, right? Like, they were terrible. Totally sold the people out.
As a result, nutrient-dense whole foods grown by America's farmers and ranchers have been increasingly displaced. The Trump administration is acutely aware of this danger, and today this announcement is making a major step in doing something about it. Thankfully, the solution is simple and should be non-controversial. Eat real food. This is the main message of the new Dietary Guidelines for Americans 2025 to 2030, which...
Oh, that sucks, Jared. Yeah, I bet it is, man. I mean, it's Amazon, though, you know. But, yeah, like I said, I'm not a fan of smoking it. I don't smoke weed. I'm a drinker, you know. That's my form of self-medication, but weed works for some people, man. And some people, they don't really have... like any justifiable reason to smoke it. They just want to get high, you know, but there are people that it really helps them out. So that's just kind of where I sit on that.
Encourage households and schools to prioritize whole nutrient-dense foods. That means more protein, more dairy, more healthy fats, more whole grains, more fruits and vegetables, whether they are fresh, frozen, canned, or dried. We are finally putting real food back at the center of the American diet. Real food that nourishes the body, restores health, fuels energy, and builds strength. This pivot also leans into the abundant, affordable, and healthy food supply already available from America's incredible farmers and ranchers. By making milk, raising cattle, and growing wholesome fruits, vegetables, and grains, they hold the key to solving our national health crisis. And President Trump is mobilizing government to ensure families across America have greater access to these healthy foods. In the past 12 months, inflation has slowed and wages have risen for the first time in 5 years. Under President Trump's leadership, prices for everyday staples are declining, and more help is on the way.
I'm telling you, like I said, guys, I'm telling you, we're going to start seeing the changes that happen in the economy from the tariffs before the midterms. That's why they did them so soon. The tariffs are changing things. Inflation has slowed. There's more money coming back into the country. This is going to be a massive tax season for everyone in the service industry that makes tips. I mean, like I was looking at mine, and the way I do the way that I do my taxes is I put $50 in additional withholdings away. So I can guarantee I get like, you know, $2,600 back, or it's like $2,500 or $2,600 back, guaranteed every year. On top of that, I'm also going to have a $25,000 deduction in my taxable income. That is my tips coming from my federal income tax. So I could be this year looking at like a $5,000 or $6,000 tax return. Like, that's massive. It's insane. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to reap a lot of benefits this year, and we're also going to be seeing a lot of folks getting put in jail. I still hold fast to that, dude.
Recent data show that fruits, vegetables, dairy, and proteins, including eggs, pork, and ground beef, are becoming even more affordable every day for our American people. American households enjoy the most affordable and abundant food in the world, and today's release only reinforces that reality. A healthy meal is within reach for all American families. These new dietary guidelines are a framework which is meant to be customized to meet the needs, the preferences, and the financial status of all American families. For example, a meal including such items as pork, or eggs, or whole milk, or cheese, tomatoes, other fresh and frozen fruits and vegetables, whole grain bread, corn tortilla can cost today right around $3 for that meal. $3. And soon USDA will finalize our stocking standards, which means that those businesses in America that take the SNAP benefit, what they are required to stock in order to take that benefit, by the way, that's almost 250,000 retailers across America, that very soon we will be finalizing that rule that will mandate all 250,000 retailers in America double the type of staple foods that they provide for America's SNAP households. This means healthier options will be in reach for all American families, regardless of circumstance, at levels never seen before in our country. These dietary guidelines are foundational to so many USDA programs, and their introduction marks the first step in connecting America's schools and dinner plates to the best of American agriculture. Make no mistake, under President Trump's leadership, we are restoring common sense, we are restoring scientific integrity, and we are restoring accountability to federal food and health policy. The new guidelines are all about putting the well-being of Americans first, exactly where it should have been all along. This is the foundation that will make America healthy again, not just for those of us alive today, but for our children and our children's children and those coming behind. I want to end by saying God bless American families, God bless the American farmer and rancher, and God bless America. What an honor now to introduce another great partner in this incredible work, and that is Dr. Mehmet Oz. Thank you.
I don't fucking like this guy. I don't like him. I don't have to, but man, I really don't like this guy.
Congratulations to Secretary Rollins, Secretary Kennedy, and do want to express my appreciation for what the President has done overall to increase the affordability of health care. The biggest accomplishment perhaps for the health system, ability to drop down prices last year, was the most favored nation drug pricing that Caroline mentioned. These are incredibly effective at reducing the costs, for example, of what the President calls the fat shot.
Hey, there you go, Robert Whaley. You getting your tomatoes in, you know what I mean? Some tomato and garlic and fucking some greens with the basil.
The Ozempic, GLP-1s category of medications. We dropped them dramatically. But the best way to reduce drug spend in America is to not need the drugs in the first place. What you're hearing today with these dietary guideline adjustments are going to be massively effective at not just dropping the need for us to buy these weight loss drugs, but buy these expensive drugs for autoimmune problems. We have evidence that food is medicine when it comes to conditions as varied as mental health issues, from Alzheimer's and depression to fundamental realities of how children learn in school. So the question then becomes, what is this actually going to do in dollars and cents? And I had the group at CMS run some numbers for us to try to give you concrete assessments of how much this will drop the spend that the federal taxpayer must make for Medicare and Medicaid. And I'm more optimistic today than ever that we can address the fast rising rate of healthcare expenses in America because of movements like this. Right now, we're increasing health expenditures in America at roughly twice the rate of the GDP growth.
There he is.
We will correct
There
that
he is.
if we can get America to be healthier, because you can't be a wealthy nation without being a healthy nation. So 2 numbers for you to remember. The first is $30 billion. Why? 30% of healthcare costs are directly attributable to obesity. I'm not talking about indirect associated expenses, which are also present, but a very conservative number, 30%, are directly attributed to obesity. That's about $300 billion a year for just Medicare, If we were to affect obesity by 10%, which is an incredibly conservative and justifiable assumption that has been borne out in evidence-based dietary experiments, and trials. Just that alone is $30 billion of reduction of expenses for Medicare rather. That's also obviously correlated with Medicaid reduction in spending. In Medicaid, it's a different opportunity because in Medicaid, we educate children. 53% of children in America are covered by Medicaid or CHIP. And we have programs to teach kids and their parents what to eat, and how to make these dietary guidelines that Secretary Rollins, Secretary Kennedy have crafted with their teams into practice. It will dramatically change the natural history of how children are able to participate in life. But let me give you one last number. If we're able to get the average American, who today retires on average at age 61, get them just to work 1 year longer, because they feel so vital, so strong, so bullish about their future, because they're feeding their bodies nutrients that are essential to their high-functioning productivity, we will increase the overall GDP of our nation by trillions of dollars. So we will reduce healthcare expenses. At the same time, we jazz up the U.S. economy with trillions of dollars created by the productivity of American workers. God bless you both for making the DGA feasible and making it perhaps the wisest investment we could make in our communities. Marty Makary is one of my closest friends, the powerful leader of the FDA who's been taking brave steps along the line and has additional insights.
Thanks. Thank you, Dr. Oz. Today marks the beginning of the end of an era of medical dogma on nutrition. For decades, we've been fed a corrupt food pyramid that has had a myopic focus on demonizing natural, healthy, saturated fats, telling you not to eat eggs and steak, and ignoring a giant blind spot. Refined carbohydrates, added sugars, ultra-processed food. This study in JAMA now shows that 60% to 70% of kids are getting their calories from ultra-processed foods. That's an epidemic. We now have a generation of kids addicted to refined carbohydrates, low in protein. They are literally nitrogen negative because we've used old flawed studies that used urine nitrogen to estimate body protein metabolism, and they missed the mark. The old guidelines had such a low protein recommendation that we are increasing that by 50 to 100%. Kids need protein. The old protein guidelines were to prevent starvation and withering away. These new protein guidelines are designed for American kids to thrive, and they're based on science, not on dogma. We have 40% of our kids now with...
No, Chuck, that dude's short as fuck. He was, even when he was standing in the lineup, like, they're all relatively the same height, and he's like half a head lower than all of them.
Chronic disease. It is not their fault. This is something that is the result of bad advice from the government and a medical establishment that for decades peddled research from a flawed 1960s model. Today, we are setting the record straight. This is not a willpower problem of our nation's kids. This is something adults have done to kids, and we're going to fix it. And so, as Dr. Oz said, the best way to lower drug prices is for people to stop taking drugs they don't need. We are going to finally address the root causes of our broken healthcare system: insulin resistance and general body inflammation, advanced by the protein-poor, micronutrient-poor, ultra-processed, refined carbohydrate diet that kids are addicted to today. And so, on behalf of the Food and Drug Administration, we are proud to be a part of this. We are Grateful to be contributing to this work. Thank you, Secretary Rollins. Thank you, Kyle Diamantis, the best deputy commissioner for food at the FDA the agency has ever had. This is a historic day in America. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. Thank you. I hope everyone's inspired to go eat a salad for lunch after this briefing. If anybody has questions on this topic, we will take a few and then we'll get into the topic. We'll start with our new media seat. If you have a question on this topic today, Jamie Franklin, she comes from the Conservator. Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, first of all, Caroline, congratulations on your pregnancy. We're so excited for you. MAHA moms across the country, including myself, are just so excited by what this administration is doing to make our kids healthy again. But you know, we do have concerns when it comes to these blue states pushing back on a lot of progress that we're making as an administration. And particularly, we're really excited that you guys revised and streamlined this vaccine schedule. However, what we have seen is that these blue states, whether it be, you know, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, or pushing back.
That shit's crazy to me. Okay, so the no tax on tips thing, the only reason these states are pushing against this, the only reason is because it is a massive W for Trump. Like they're not. What's going on with it is, you know, they can't govern the IRS, the IRS tax code, but they can include these things into their state taxes. So none of these people who would get this massive break this year are going to get it in states that are pushing back on it. It's fucking egregious that they're doing this to people.
On immigration, they continue to stop your guys' progress. So what has been the response from these blue states? Because as MAHA moms enrolling our kids in school, this is a big issue, and we celebrate what you guys are doing, but we want to have it, you know, even in the blue states as well.
I mean, my hope is that we only released these earlier, 2 days earlier. I'm sorry.
Duck is also high in protein.
That's an interesting.
Duck is a good thing to eat, everybody.
His phone went off and his ringtone is a duck quacking. That's funny.
They only released the new vaccine schedule 2 days ago. The vaccine schedule, there's nothing compulsory in it. Everybody, I've always promised, I'm not going to take people's vaccines away from them. People who want to get vaccines, everybody who wants them can get all of the vaccines that were on the old schedule. They will all be paid for by the Vaccines for Children program or for the insurance the same as before. We release guidelines that we think are optimal to public health. They're the same with core vaccines that are required by the European community. And those nations all have much better health outcomes than we do. And they're based on their best science and also on their conviction that when you put too many vaccines on the program, it actually reduces compliance. It reduces uptake. And so we want to maximize the uptake of vaccines by making sure that Americans know that we are making recommendations that are science-based, that are common sense, that are grounded in science. And right now, that's the best science that we have. And again, there's 3 categories of vaccine. One is the core schedule, which resembles the European countries. The second is for people who have vulnerabilities, for high risk, and that doesn't change at all. And then the third is shared decision making, which any vaccine that was on the old schedule, you can continue to get. So people will make their own choices, and that's what democracy is about.
I asked the boss, Caroline, for permission to add a little bit to this because I think it's really important. And by the way, Jamie, what a superstar you are. It's so fun to see you in this seat, Jamie Franklin. The blue state question is a really important one. And for those of us that are running agencies with these programs, I mean, I've talked to a lot of you already about how we have 22 blue states that won't give us their SNAP data so that we can figure out and ensure that those who really need these programs are actually getting these programs. Clearly, you all have been writing about Minnesota. California is next. We're looking at New York, some other states. The amount of fraud in all of these programs is absolutely stunning. And the challenge is, I mean, from Medicaid, et cetera, I know, Dr. Oz, you've talked a lot about that. This is a significant significant problem. And I think who's really harmed in all of this conversation and when these blue states aren't partnering with us to try to do this right is we say blue states and red states, but in those states there are all kinds of our citizenry and that aren't all Democrat or aren't all Republican. We had a poll that just came out that had about 85% of all Americans believe that states should turn their data over on SNAP so that we can figure out where the fraud is and ensure these programs are going where they need to go. So
why do you think they're not turning them over, huh? Why you think? I'd say if they don't turn the data over, cut it off immediately. That goes without saying. Like, that's how I would do this. Turn the data over or go fuck yourself.
Request of these blue states and these blue state governors is partner with us. Let us figure out how to do this better. Let us make sure that whether it's the vaccine schedule or the SNAP program or the Medicaid program or the child care program, that we are doing everything we can to protect every tax dollar, but to also ensure those who need it the most vulnerable in our society, are getting the programs they need versus those who A, are not even supposed to be here, or B, are cheating the system.
Jeff.
Thanks, Caroline. One of the changes that was made had to do with alcohol. Secretary Kennedy or Dr. Oz, could you explain the science behind the new language on not saying 2 drinks for men and 1 drink for a woman every day would be healthy, and whether or not the industry had an impact on the language of moderation versus just saying alcohol is not healthy and you shouldn't drink it?
So alcohol is a social lubricant that brings people together. In the best case scenario, I don't think you should drink alcohol, but it does allow people an excuse to bond and socialize, and there's probably nothing healthier than having a good time with friends in a safe way. If you look at the blue zones, for example, around the world where people live the longest, alcohol is sometimes part of their diet. Again, it's small amounts, taken very judiciously, and usually in a celebratory fashion. So there is alcohol on these dietary guidelines, but the implication is don't have it for breakfast. Right, this should be something done in a small amount with hopefully some kind of an event that might have alcohol added. But the general move away from 2 glasses of men, 1 glass of women, there was never really good data to support that quantity of alcohol consumption. That data was probably primarily confused with broader data about social connectiveness.
Take a couple more. John?
Thanks a lot, Caroline. Secretary Rollins, I'm curious about with these guidelines. They're not mandates, they're guidelines. What are the practical effects of these guidelines on public schools all across the country?
Well, today begins thank you, John. It's good to see you. Today begins the first day now in a recalibration of the rules, whether it's school lunches,
what up, Sammy?
whether it's the SNAP
Welcome
program,
in, brother.
whether it's that veterans were mentioned, our prison system, that now we begin the process of implementing and redrafting the rules to reflect what this new dietary guidelines for Americans actually is doing to our food system. So there is a lot of work to do. Nothing changes overnight, but as I think we've proven, this administration moves very, very quickly on all fronts, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and so you'll begin to see some real changes coming very soon. As everyone is aware.
I mean, so far, man, there's nothing here that doesn't sound like just common sense. Hey, we should do this. We should have done this a long time ago, honestly.
For many of our most vulnerable in the margins in our communities, the school lunch is often the best place for our children to get the healthiest meal. Hopefully with stocking standards and reworking SNAP and the SNAP waivers we've done, that begins to change too. But right now, that is going to be the single most important, from my perspective, move forward, is the school lunches and making sure that we're getting the right amount, the best amount, and most nutrient-dense foods into the schools. Thank you.
You also mentioned, Secretary Rollins, cost when you had your remarks a little bit earlier. Is eating healthier more cost-effective? Is it cheaper than just having a diet of processed foods?
I had a whole chart to show you, but left it in the back, unfortunately, that yes, indeed, that eating healthy, for the most part, we've got 100 simulations, is actually less expensive. The challenge comes is the access to those healthy foods, especially in parts of America where they have food deserts. They don't have a H-E-B or a Kroger or a Central Market. These are all Texan grocery stores, but whatever similar across the country. But that is why these stocking standards in SNAP are so important. So if you have a economically challenged family, and the only place they're getting their food is the 7-Eleven. We have a longer term
Oh, no, you're good, dude.
priority, and that is getting
Don't worry
grocery
about it.
stores into
That
these
sounds
lower
fucking
margin
delicious,
communities.
by the way.
But
Shepherd's
for
pie is
now,
bomb.
requiring those retailers, those 250,000 retailers across America, to double their stocking of healthier foods, that will allow us to immediately get these better foods into all communities, but especially the most vulnerable. Thank you, John.
Let me just add something to that. Brooke and I are working on a program. Affordability is the priority for the president. And we know we have to make it easy and accessible for healthy foods for every American. And we believe we can do that. We think affordable food is within reach of every American family. We are working on a education and information program that will allow American families all over the country to come onto our website and find the healthiest foods at the lowest cost for themselves. I'd also just add this. The idea that a cheap meal made of processed food is cheap is an illusion, because you're paying for it on the back end. You're paying for it with diabetes, with obesity, with illness. And if you internalize that cost of the meal, it would be a tiny fraction of the long-term cost of eating bad food.
So we'll take one more in the white blazer. Thank you.
Caroline, Secretary Kennedy, you mentioned healthy fats, but also ending the war on saturated fats. Can you clarify how much saturated fats Americans should be consuming?
I'm going to let Marty take that, since he wrote a book about it.
Look, the old dogma in the 1960s when Eisenhower had his heart attack and Ansel Keys said it was the saturated fat. That's never been substantiated. And so that flawed research has become dogma over the years, and eventually the conversation was sidelined. In this new guidance, we are telling young people, kids, schools, you don't need to tiptoe around fat and dairy. You don't need to push low-fat milk to kids. And we are maintaining the 10% of calories as saturated fat in the guidance. The real issue is protein. The fact that 60 to 70% of the calories of kids today in America is ultra-processed food. These are the issues that have become giant blind spots where we're now putting
And
attention.
carbs.
We hope that there are conversations in every school board in America, in every church and synagogue and house of worship, every home in America will now have conversations. We've got to talk about school.
Notice he didn't say mosque.
School lunch programs, not just putting 6-year-olds on Ozempic. Food can be curative. We've got to talk about the microbiome and fiber and healthy whole grains and the good soil that food comes from and the healthy clean waters and good farming techniques. So that's the focus of this guidance. Thank you.
Great. Some of you may be wondering why Dr. Carson is here. He is our National Nutrition Advisor working alongside Secretary Kennedy, and he's played a big role in this effort. So I want to thank you so much, Dr. Carson, for being here today. And thank all of you for being here today.
You don't get to say nothing, but thanks, brother.
I know you're all very busy people, and these people have a lot of questions.
I'm
on
talking to
things
Patty
other
right
than
now.
diet, I'm sure.
Nice,
So
dude.
I'm going to get to work, and thank you guys so much for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All righty. Great. Does anyone have any questions? Rachel, why don't you start?
Thank you, Caroline. The president has been adamant that he is now in charge of Venezuela, but Delcy Rodriguez said the government of Venezuela runs her country, no one else, saying, quote, there's no external agent governing Venezuela. So which one is it?
Let me just be very clear. This is the first time that I've addressed Venezuela from the podium since being back and since the historic and incredibly successful military operation, law enforcement operation conducted by our United States military that you all saw and the world witnessed last week. The skill, the might of the United States military and our country under the leadership of this president is on full display to the rest of the world. And let's just set the record straight. There isn't another military in the world who could have pulled off this operation. There is not another president in the world or in our nation's history who had the courage to authorize such a mission. And I think the world has taken notice that America is truly back. With respect to Venezuela, the Trump administration, led by Secretary Rubio, the Vice President, and the President's entire national security team, is in close correspondence with the interim authorities in Venezuela. We obviously have maximum leverage over the interim authorities in Venezuela right now, and the President has made it very clear that this is a country within the United States,
Oh, she's answering
Western
now.
Hemisphere, close by the United States, that is no longer going to be sending illegal drugs to the United States of America. It's no longer going to be sending and trafficking illegal people and criminal cartels to kill American citizens as they have in the past. And the President is fully deploying his peace through strength foreign policy agenda. So we're continuing to be in close coordination with the interim authorities, and their decisions are going to continue to be dictated by the United States of America.
Just one follow-up when you talk about that leverage there. Has the Venezuelan government fully committed to turning over its oil to the United States indefinitely, and what happens if they do not?
Well, as you saw, the President announced last night, this was a deal. This was a deal made by the President and his team with the Venezuelan interim authorities.
Neither do I,
This will benefit
Chud.
both the American people and the Venezuelan people. And Secretary Wright and the Department of Energy are working with the interim authorities and also with the private oil industry to execute on this historic energy deal. That's not only good for the United States, but it's also going to revive the prosperity, the safety, the security of both the United States and Venezuela as well. Ed.
Following up on the oil part of this, the 30 to 50 million barrels of oil, how exactly is that going to work? You're getting it out of Venezuela into the United States?
Yes.
And then what?
That's exactly right. So as you know, Ed, as the President announced last night, this was the sanctioned oil that was basically just sitting in barrels, sitting on ships because of the effective quarantine of the United States of America. And the interim authorities have agreed to release that oil to the United States, so it will be arriving here at home very soon. The United States government has already begun marketing Venezuelan crude oil in the global marketplace for the benefit of the United States, engaged the world's leading commodity marketers, key banks to execute and
What's up, Never
provide
Lucky?
financial support for these crude oil and crude product sales. All proceeds from the sale of Venezuelan crude oil and products will first settle in U.S.-controlled accounts at globally recognized banks to guarantee the legitimacy and integrity of the ultimate distribution of proceeds, and those funds will be dispersed
I am, man. How are
for
you
the
doing
benefit
today?
of the American people and the Venezuelan people at the discretion of the United States government.
It sounds like it requires a lot of private sector engagement and agreement
And
from
there's
the oil
a-
industry and the banking industry.
That's
Do you
right.
have that yet?
There's a lot of private sector engagement that's happening right now, as you know.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Here's what's going to end up happening, okay? So these massive U.S. oil companies are going to go down to Venezuela, and they're going to update their infrastructure. They're going to invest a bunch of money into the country, and they're going to start selling that oil to the United States for cheap. That's what's about to start. That's what is about to start happening, okay? That's it. They can capitulate, or they can get the fuck out of the way, you know? There's really no other way this is going to go.
Secretary Wright, our energy secretary who's heading up this big project, is in Florida today meeting with some of these oil executives. And as we confirmed earlier, they will also be at the White House later this week. So they are absolutely eager to invest. They're eager about these opportunities. And Secretary Wright is a very well knowledgeable guy when it comes to oil and energy, and he's the perfect man for the job.
Another corner of the world,
Sure.
real quick on
Go ahead.
Iran.
Go ahead.
So just to follow up on the oil, 30 to 50 million barrels is an initial tranche, if you will, and then what happens after that? What
I won't get ahead of the plans that the President and his team are currently speaking with the interim authorities about, but rest assured, there is a long-term plan here. Secretary Rubio and the entire team are working diligently on it, and this is just sort of the first action that you all are seeing.
I mean, they basically already said it, though, right? A bunch of ConocoPhillips, Exxon, and Chevron was already kind of working down there, but Chevron's going to be expanding their operations in Venezuela. ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips are going to go down there, and they're going to invest in the infrastructure, build it up to where it's a, no pun intended, well-oiled machine, and they're going to start selling oil to the United States. That is what is about to happen. It's not going to go any other way. I promise you. I promise you.
Ed.
Thanks, Caroline. So in order to get these oil companies to invest billions in Venezuela, how will the U.S. reassure that their workers will be safe in Venezuela? Could there be troops involved?
At this point in time, as you know, there are no troops on the ground in Venezuela. The president, of course, reserves the right to use the United States military if necessary. It's not something he wants to do. Diplomacy is always the first option. As you saw, he tried that with Nicolas Maduro, but unfortunately, he was an illegitimate dictator and an unserious person. And so President Trump authorized this law enforcement operation, and now Nicolas Maduro is sitting in a prison cell in New York. So certainly the president is going to do what's in the best interests of the American people, and that includes workers from our energy and oil industry as well.
With that meeting tomorrow, what is the message the president is going to give to the oil executives, and what does he want to hear?
Well, the meeting is on Friday, and it's just a meeting to discuss, obviously, the immense opportunity that is before these oil companies right now. Stephen.
Caroline, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
The New Yorker had a story yesterday on the vice president, and it questioned his, quote, notable absence on Venezuela. And the sub-headline asked, was the vice president's exclusion from the operation in Venezuela an expression of his anti-interventionist ideology or political calculation? Would you be able to discuss the vice president's role in Venezuela policy?
I did see that report in the New Yorker, and quite frankly, I laughed out loud because it's very clear it's a fake report that's trying to sow distrust and division amongst the president and his team. Let me just be very clear. The vice president has been involved in all policy. He is the right-hand man of the president on all policy matters, including Venezuela policy. He was, of course, read in and deeply involved in this operation from the very beginning. And he was present on the night of the operation via secure communication at a different location as to not damage the operational secrecy of this mission that was so incredibly important to ensure that this mission could be carried out successfully without endangering our troops. Sure.
The U.S. seized a tanker recently. Russia specifically asked the United States not to seize that tanker. Does this action risk a larger conflict with Russia?
I believe you're referring to the Bella 1 tanker that was seized this morning. The Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security, in coordination with the Department of War, did announce that seizure this morning for violations of U.S. sanctions. I've spoken about the enforcement of our sanctions policy at the podium prior to the new year, and this administration is going to fully enforce the sanction policy of the United States. The vessel this morning was seized in the North Atlantic pursuant to a warrant issued by a U.S. federal court after being tracked. And this was a Venezuelan shadow fleet vessel that has transported sanctioned oil. And the United States of America, under this president, is not going to tolerate that. I would also just add the vessel had a judicial seizure order in the crew, so that means the crew is now subject to prosecution for any applicable violation of federal law, and they will be brought to the United States for such prosecution if necessary. Kelly.
Caroline, Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. You too.
I'd like to talk to you about a couple of things real quickly. The first question about the Venezuelan people. As you know, there's some 8 million Venezuelans here, some of them celebrating in the streets. There are Venezuelans on the ground who are concerned about their safety. What does the Trump administration, what is it doing to actually help people in Venezuela understand that they will be secure throughout this transition?
I think the fact that this president actually followed through on the long-held promise of the United States of America, the bipartisan promise to take down the illegitimate Maduro regime, should give assurance to the Venezuelan people and also Venezuelan Americans who fled this communist regime for a better life here at home, that this is a president who is serious about taking down illegitimate regimes and who is also serious about securing the security of the United States of America, including the Venezuelan American people. And I would just add that this is something that not just Republicans and President Trump have talked about for a very long time, but it is also something that Democrats have advocated for. In 2020, Chuck Schumer said that that at the time, President Trump had not brought an end to the Maduro regime. The Maduro regime is more powerful today and more entrenched today than it was when the president began. Now you hear Chuck Schumer out there saying this is reckless. The American people and the Venezuelan people should be in fear. But this is something that Chuck Schumer has long advocated for. Senator Chris Van Hollen, same thing, had said that the United States is going to use its leverage and influence to push for negotiations to transition to the truly elected leader. This was under President Biden. We know Maduro and his cronies don't want to go quietly into the night. The U.S. needs to work to ratchet up the pressure. Now, Senator Holland says it's an illegal act of war to get rid of Nicolas Maduro. So the hypocrisy is really astounding here, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to point it out, Kayla. Sorry, go ahead. Yes.
So there are reports that the administration is demanding that Venezuela cut ties with China, Russia, Iran, and Cuba. Can you confirm?
I'm sorry?
Reports that the administration has essentially demanded that Venezuela cut ties with China, Russia, Iran, and Cuba.
You better.
Can you confirm that?
Well,
they fucking better. You're not going to be working with our enemies when you're just over the pond, dude.
Those alleged demands were made in a classified briefing by Secretary Rubio, and I know that there's a lot of leaks coming out of these classified briefings, so I'm not going to confirm or deny or get into what the Secretary has said in classified settings to members of Congress. But I think that the administration has made it quite clear to the interim authorities in Venezuela that this is the Western Hemisphere, and American dominance is going to continue under this president.
If I could just ask, there have also been reports that the U.S. could potentially buy Greenland as one potential option on the table. What would such an offer look like? Is there anything monetarily you could provide, any details there?
Well, that's something that's currently being actively discussed by the president and his national security team. And I would point out that the acquisition of Greenland by the United States is not a new idea. This is something that presidents dating back to the 1800s have said is advantageous for America's national security. The president has been very open and clear with all of you and with the world that he views it in the best interest of the United States to deter Russian and Chinese aggression in the Arctic region. And so that's why his team is currently talking about what a potential purchase would look like.
Arepas.
Jackie.
Caroline, just following up on Greenland, why not rule out taking it by military force?
I know that past presidents and past leaders have often ruled things out. They've often been very open about ruling things in and basically broadcasting their foreign policy strategy to the rest of the world, not just to our allies, but most egregiously to our adversaries. That's not something this president does. All options are always on the table for President Trump as he examines what's in the best interests of the United States. But I will just say that the president's first option always has been diplomacy. Again, look at Venezuela. He tried ardently to strike a good deal with Nicolas Maduro, and he told him, I will use the United States military and you will not like it if you don't take such a deal. And look at what happened. With respect to Iran, the president said the same thing, right? He tried to have serious interest in a deal with the Iranian regime with respect to their nuclear capabilities. They were not interested, and so Operation Midnight Hammer happened, which was another remarkable military success under the leadership of this commander-in-chief. So the president keeps his options open, but diplomacy is always the first.
Quickly, just one additional follow-up on that. Does the president recognize Denmark's ownership as part of the kingdom? Because there have been some Republican senators questioning, the claim that Denmark has to Greenland. Is the president in that camp with them, questioning the legality of
I have not heard him question it personally, but you're welcome to ask him yourself next time you have the chance.
Sanctions are being lifted for Venezuela. We got to lift some sanctions to let the oil come in. Can you talk about that just very briefly?
Yes, so the U.S. is selectively rolling back sanctions to enable the transport and the sale of Venezuelan crude and oil products to the global markets, yes.
Caroline.
Annie.
Thank you. There are some reports from Venezuela that the country's leaders are cracking down on the population, specifically suppressing public expression of support for Maduro's ouster. Is that kind of behavior consistent with what the president wants to see, how the president wants to see the leaders take on the population?
It would not be consistent, and I'll let the president's national security team speak further on that. I know they are well aware and tracking. Kelly.
Two questions. One, on the seized vessels, the Bella, the Sophia, can you tell us where they're headed, what happens to any existing cargo, and you reference personnel potentially facing prosecution? That's one thing I'd like to follow on. And then
on the Bella.
Yes, okay. And on Annie's question, if I could also ask, does the administration believe that the interim regime should release all political dissidents and prisoners and return detained Americans?
That's not a question that I've personally spoken about to the president with. So I will let him answer that question. I don't want to make new policy at this podium today with respect to Venezuela. With respect to the two ships that you mentioned, I spoke with you about the Bella One. There was another vessel this morning, the Sophia, that in coordination with the Department of War, the Department of Homeland Security apprehended it. This is a stateless, sanctioned, dark fleet motor tanker, and this occurred without incident. This vessel was operating in international waters and conducting illicit activities in the Caribbean Sea. The U.S. Coast Guard is escorting the Sophia to the United States for final disposition. To answer your question, Kelly, directly, this was through Operation Southern Spear. The Department of War is unwavering in its mission to crush illicit activity in the Western Hemisphere. And as the President has repeatedly stated, we're going to defend our homeland and restore security and strength across the Americas. Dasha. Dasha, go.
Caroline, thank you and Happy New Year.
Thanks, you too.
Two questions, one on Venezuela, one on Greenland. You've repeatedly at the podium called the current leadership in Venezuela interim leadership. There are Republicans and Democrats alike that say they want to see elections in Venezuela. The president has said it's too soon to do that right now, but is there a timeline for elections in Venezuela? Is he committed to seeing that this year, for example?
You just said the president has answered that question, so I will reiterate what the president has said a few times now to all of you, which is that it's too premature and too early to dictate a timetable for elections in Venezuela right now.
Caroline, you just talked to Jackie about diplomacy first, right? The Danes have repeatedly said they are willing to collaborate on all of the concerns that the president has, whether it's more troops, mineral rights, intelligence sharing. Why does the president feel he needs to own Greenland and not and put out the threat of military action when this could be done through diplomacy?
Well, who said diplomacy isn't taking place behind the scenes, Dasha? I mean, the president is interested in diplomacy. His national security team is as well. And of course, he's always willing to pick up the phone for everybody and hear out their concerns. But the president is the president of the United States of America, and he's always going to be very clear about what he views as being in our nation's best interest. Reagan.
Caroline, I have a question for you on Venezuela, and then I'd love to ask you about Minnesota and Tim Walz.
Sure.
On Venezuela, I'm wondering, does the administration hope to start sending more Venezuelan migrants back home or have them self-deport if the situation in the country improves?
As far as I'm concerned, the policies of the Trump administration and the Department of Homeland Security have not changed. All those illegally present in the country are subject to deportation. And I would just like to add, how we got here. The president was very clear on the campaign to the American public, and it's one of the many reasons they resoundingly reelected him back to this office, that he was not only going to crush foreign drug cartels, but that he was not going to stand by and watch as the illegitimate Venezuelan regime was sending illegal criminals and gang members and rapists and murderers to our country, which happened to the tune of thousands under the previous administration and president. And so there could be nothing more America first than this operation that took place last week. And I would just remind all of you in this room that there were innocent Americans like Jocelyn Nungare who lost their lives at the hands of dangerous Venezuelan criminals who were sent here by the Maduro regime. And that has been the president's North Star and guiding principle throughout his entire policy since January 20th.
Tim Walz in Minnesota. Does the administration believe that Tim Walz potentially dropped out of the governor's race because he could be under criminal investigation?
I don't know if there's a criminal investigation. If there was, I wouldn't be able to comment on it from up here, to be honest with you. But I think Tim Walz probably
What up, Achilles?
because he realizes he no longer has the support of the people of his own state.
Welcome
which is
in,
a
man.
remarkable downfall considering he was the #2 on the Democrat Party's ticket just about a year ago.
Yeah, he sure was, wasn't he? We dodged a fucking bullet with that one, boys.
Of fraud is really remarkable. It's egregious. I would encourage every single journalist in this room to go to Minnesota and to cover it yourselves. As for the Trump administration, we have officials who have been on the ground almost every day. Secretary Noem was there yesterday. Secretary Bessent will be traveling there later this week to talk about the fraud and to do a roundtable on this very topic. And I would just like to leave you with an update. To date, the Department of Justice has charged 98 total defendants in several Medicaid fraud and related case programs. 64 were convicted, and 85 of the 98 charged were of Somali descent. The DOJ has also issued over 1,700 subpoenas executed over 130 search warrants, and they have now added more attorneys to their office there to absorb the case flow. DHS is on the ground going door to door conducting large-scale criminal and HSI investigations. They have also sent approximately 2,000 agents to Minneapolis to assist with law enforcement and immigration enforcement. As I said, Secretary Noem was on the ground yesterday. The Department of Health and Human Services has also begun requiring a justification and photo evidence for all child care related payments nationwide, and they required Minnesota to conduct a full audit of all child care centers. They also froze $185 million in funding to Minnesota. And Dr. Oz, who was just here, also notified Governor Walz they're going to begin auditing Medicaid recipients and deferring payments on claims based on waste, fraud, and abuse. The Department of Labor is also conducting a targeted review of Minnesota's unemployment program. Department of Agriculture requiring Minnesota to conduct recertification for SNAP
This fraud shit is done in Minnesota, bro.
recipients, and HUD has launched investigations into the public housing. SBA has also suspended nearly 7,000 borrowers amid suspected fraudulent activity. So, with all of that, rest assured this is an all-hands-on-deck effort from the entire administration to get to the bottom of this and to ensure that the ripping off of taxpayers in the state of Minnesota, and it won't just be Minnesota, it'll be any state across this country where fraud has taken place, and we are protecting law-abiding, tax-paying American citizens. Phil.
Thank you, Caroline. Just to follow up on Greenland, there are treaties already on the books that give the United States access to the island. They can construct and maintain military bases there. We can house personnel on the island. The U.S. has control of landings, takeoffs, anchorages, etc. So I'm curious if you could just spell out for the American public what specifically would the U.S. gain by taking control of Greenland that the U.S. doesn't already have access to?
What we would gain is the ability to have nobody have any call but us by taking over Greenland. Let's say something happens between us and the UN. Or us and the EU. Just saying.
Right
now. More control over the Arctic region and ensuring that China and Russia and our adversaries cannot continue their aggression in this very important and strategic region. And there would be many other benefits as well that, again, the President and his national security team are currently talking about. Jeff, I'll give you another one.
Just a broad sort of stand-back question on foreign policy. Are you concerned about increasing tensions with Russia because of the tanker seizures? And how does the U.S. action in Venezuela impact the ongoing relationship with China and the President's relationship with President Xi?
I think the President has very open, honest, and good relationships with both President Putin of Russia and also President Xi of China. He has spoken with them numerous times, as you know, since coming to office about a year ago, and I believe that those personal relationships are going to continue. But as for the President and the United States, he's going to enforce our policy that's best for the United States of America. And with respect to these ship seizures, that means enforcing the embargo against all dark fleet vessels that are illegally transporting oil, and only legitimate commerce, to answer your question much earlier, Rachel, determined by the United States is going to be permitted. And that's the policy of this administration, and he's not afraid to implement it. Go ahead.
In other words, this is what's going to happen. If you don't like it, fuck you.
If he was committed to Article 5 in NATO, and he said yes. Has his stance on NATO or his commitment to NATO changed?
Did you see his statement earlier today? He said we will always be there for NATO even if they are not there for us. And I think that answers your question directly. Yes.
Just to follow up on what Jeff was saying there, will the President commit that if any NATO members are attacked, the United States will come to it?
Again, the President addressed this directly himself this morning after seeing the coverage from all of you in this room on television, and he made it very clear we're always going to be there for NATO, even if they have not done right by the United States of America. And they have not, they have finally increased their defense spending at the request of this president, but it was only because of this president that they did that. We'll take a couple more. Michael, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. Happy New Year and congratulations.
Thank you.
Two questions, if
You
I may.
too.
One on healthcare, one on Mexico. On healthcare, the president says he wants Republicans to be flexible on the Hyde Amendment in order to pass healthcare legislation. What is the White House's message to pro-life voters who say federal funding for abortion goes against their values?
Well, the president did not change the administration's policy. It was President Trump who signed an executive order protecting the Hyde Amendment. It's the Trump administration that has taken multiple actions on various fronts to ensure that taxpayer dollars are not funding the practice of abortion. What the president was saying yesterday was Republicans, and frankly Democrats too, need to show a little bit more flexibility so we can actually get something done with respect to the issue of health care. Republicans have amazing ideas. The president himself, as we spoke about earlier, has launched this Most Favored Nation drug pricing initiative, has cut good deals with Big Pharma. He wants to see Republicans and Democrats too, if they're willing, codify those executive orders into law so that these good deals can remain and these prices can continue to be lowered long after this president and this deal maker in chief is gone. The president's talked a lot about health savings accounts and giving more money back to the healthcare consumer rather than to these giant insurance companies, and he's been very outspoken and tough on them too, and I think you'll see more and hear more from him directly on that issue. So he wants to see Congress get something done with respect to health care, and that was the point that he was driving home yesterday.
Mexico, Caroline,
Haley.
President Trump says the drug cartels are running Mexico. What action does he need to see Mexico's president, Claudia Sheinbaum, take to prove that she's in control of that country, in control of those cartels? And does the White House believe she's able to do that without U.S. intervention?
Look, I think the president was speaking very candidly and frankly about the reality on the ground in Mexico. Haley.
Caroline, Happy New Year. I wanted to
Thanks,
ask
you
you
too.
about the seized tanker, the Vela. There were reports before this that Russia had sent a submarine to escort it. Was there any engagement with that submarine? And then was the deconfliction line with Russia used ahead of boarding that?
Again, this was a Venezuelan shadow fleet vessel that has transported sanctioned oil. The vessel was deemed stateless after flying a false flag, and it had a judicial seizure order, and that's why the crew will be subject to prosecution. Mary.
On Colombia, the president talked over the weekend and suggested that he would be open to an operation there. Should the president of Colombia be expecting Delta Force anytime soon? And then I had another one for you on California.
That would be a very unwise question for me to answer, to weigh into. What's your next question?
On California, can you share any more about the fraud investigation? The president said that there was one. Who's being investigated and where is it starting?
Again, this is going to be a all-hands-on-deck government-wide effort. The president has directed all agencies across the board to look at federal spending programs in not just Minnesota, but also in the state of California to identify fraud and to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law all those who have committed it. Take one more, sure.
Thank you. Caroline, yesterday was the 5-year anniversary of January 6th. Democrats and mainstream media continue to push their big lie that it was an insurrection and that police officers died that day. The reality is that 4 Trump supporters died on January 6th and 2 women were killed by January 6th police. Everybody knows Ashley Babbitt was shot in cold blood by Capitol Police Officer Michael Byrd, but there was another woman, her name was Roseanne Boylan from Georgia, and she was pepperballed, gassed, and ultimately brutally beaten with a stick by January 6th police officer Lila Morris. The Biden administration and mainstream media lied and told Americans Roseanne Boylan died of a drug overdose on Capitol steps. Her family is now asking for an investigation. Is the administration aware of the circumstances of her death, and will there be an investigation finally?
Well, for investigation, I will have to defer you to either the FBI or the Department of Justice, and I'm sorry to have to do that. But with respect to all of the facts that you just laid out, the White House relished the opportunity yesterday to actually create a new website to share the facts with the American public, but also all those in this room. We knew the media would be covering January 6th quite a bit because they think it's something that the American people are still believing their lies on. They think it's something that still helps their case against this president. Obviously not, or else he wouldn't have been reelected in an overwhelming fashion in November of last year. And so I would encourage everyone to take a look at the website. It's quite well done. And thank you all very much. It's great to be back with you.
Thank you.
All right, that's it, boys. That's it. I like her as a press secretary. She seems pretty good. Guys, check it out. I gotta walk the dog. It's always a pleasure. Achilles, Never Lucky, Stamey, Chuck, Jared, Robert Whaley. Who else we got in here? Kokoshuko, Rude. We had Dusty in here earlier. Scott Hotvet, the man, the myth, the legend. There he is. Ashton Allwine. Darth Grumpy. Hey, guys. Really appreciate y'all. Glad to have you here. I'm going to go take care of the doggy. Grab some food. You guys have a great night, okay? Peace.